TikTok, time to rock. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon to everyone who's watching from all over the world. It's your friendly neighborhood philosopher here, D. Wood. With me now is the ally of evil everywhere, the atheist, donkey brain, apostate prophet. How you doing?
Don't do atheism. Don't do atheism.
Will the persecution never end?
Don't do atheism, guys. It's dangerous. It's not good. Yeah. So I'm doing well. How are you doing, David?
Good. I saw this channel, Daily Dose of Wisdom, and he was discussing this clip. Well, this is not what we'll be watching right now, but he was discussing a clip by Michael Shermer and Stephen Meyer, where they were talking about mathematics and like the reality of numbers and stuff. Anyway, then I went and found the original discussion. The original discussion they were having is something like whether science leads to God or something like that. Anyway, you know Michael Shermer, right?
Yeah.
You know who this guy is, right?
I thought we were talking about Michael Myers. No,
you know Michael Myers, don't you?
Yes, I do know Michael Myers. Very scary. Yeah, Michael Shermer. He's that guy. He's that science guy who is less in the pop culture than the other atheist figures, but also better actually. And more, deeper.
Yeah, I had yeah, there's like lots of people use like a kind of I don't know, village skepticism where they're just taught, hey, anything you don't believe in, just say, where's your proof for that and stuff like that. But he's actually like deep into Bayesian reasoning and like hypothesis confirmation and things like that, and the tools that you should use to avoid coming to wrong conclusions. And I certainly wouldn't agree with his application of these tools in a lot of the situations, but there is a question of like, hey, if you want to avoid gullibly falling for complete nonsense, what are the tools that you would use in analyzing evidence and so on. And so that's, and by the way, I debated Stephen Meyer several years ago on the existence of God. It was funny because he tweeted right when the debate was starting. He tweeted out, he said, "Hey, so I'm debating this guy who's apparently a total psychopath," or something like that. But anyway, that was funny.
That's fun.
So that's him. And then Stephen Meyer. It's cool. I liked this clip when I went and looked at it, because these guys are really, really smart. So there's Michael Shermer, very smart. And then Stephen Meyer also, but it's like, I don't know. They're similar in certain ways, but they're also really smart in different ways. And Stephen Meyer's really just look at all this evidence and look, we're comparing all these different possibilities. And if it's this possibility, then that's a problem. And if this possibility, then that's a problem for you. And if this is a possibility, then that's a problem for you. This one, so all these support me. He's like that. And Michael Shermer's like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's something else. Maybe I'm missing something here. And so anyway, it's anyway, pretty cool. I like both these guys. And I like the guy who's leading the discussion, whom I was not familiar with. Brian. Guys, ever heard of Brian Callen?
That don't ring a bell.
Apparently he's a comedian who did a podcast. So he's a comedian who started doing podcasts, which that seems to be, I think Joe Rogan laid down that pattern, because then Bill Burr's doing, like, they all started doing it. And it's good, because if you're naturally super funny, seems like you'd be good for having discussions with people that are entertaining.
That don't ring no bell.
By the way, since you brought up Michael Myers.
Are you really going to go into that?
No,
yes.
I just wanted to point out, because I found this out a long, long time ago. Grew up in West Virginia, hillbilly area, poor area. Yeah. It's almost heaven, but it's pretty poor there.
Okay.
Grew up trailer park. Go to movies and watch the movies. Fun to watch the movies. I forget how old I was, but I went to see one of the Halloween movies with my brothers. But we were in a completely different state, and we were in the hood. We were in the hood. We went to a theater in the hood to catch the new Halloween movie, and the whole place was jam packed. Every seat except for like a couple in the front row, full. Us and all black people, and it was like 1,000 times funner watching a Halloween movie. In a black theater, as far as it's a totally different kind of audience from white people. White people, oh no, it's kind of don't go over there, right? These guys are like telling every character what to do the entire time. It was awesome, but it was way more fun. It was way more fun. So I don't know why everyone doesn't do the movie experience like that.
I thought you were going to say something racist when you said black people.
Yeah, it is against white people. They don't know how to watch movies. They make it boring. I mean,
that's true.
Put it this way. If you're watching a movie in a completely white audience, the only entertainment experience is the movie, which you could watch somewhere else. You could watch that in your home screen or something like that. If you are in a theater, and I don't even know if people are like this everywhere, if it's just like if it's just certain areas or something like that. But it's a way more interesting, fun experience. Anyway, so now that we've gotten AP's racism against against all non-Turkish people out of the way, all right, let's go ahead and jump into some of this clip.
Oh, I made Turks angry again on Twitter. That's so.
Why did you do that?
I don't know. When was that? Yesterday. Oh yeah, yesterday. I tweeted something about if you want to look at a country that treats its minorities terribly, like second-class citizens, look at Turkey, and then talked about Kurdish people and all that, and then see the response is like, "What are you talking about? How dare you, traitor? How about you come here and we show you?"
How are Turks at dealing with criticism? Because I've noticed some different cultures. I've noticed some different cultures, and some are not good at dealing with criticism.
The average response that you will get from Turks when you criticize them or point out terrible things about Turkey is, "How about come to Turkey and I will show you what mistreatment looks like."
Well, that's a decisive refutation of your point.
Exactly.
What do you think is because I view a lot of what's going on in the Muslim world as sort of desperation moves that are going to be followed by, okay, this isn't working. So it looks like Turkey is going in a dangerous direction. Do you think it's gonna last and they're going to keep getting worse, or is that going to collapse?
Well, there is the thing, like people generally, you would like to eat chicken, but you go for turkey, and turkey doesn't taste as good as chicken. Turkey is like the second choice, the less popular choice, that you slaughter just to eat it. Chicken is generally the better one, tastes better, is sweeter, and all of that. And I prefer it to turkey. Turkey sucks, in my opinion. But it has nothing to do with the country Turkey, which is terrible and which has no hope at all for the future. Yeah.
Interesting. LJ says, how come you recovered from your son's death so quickly? Because I'm a psychopath, LJ. I recover from stuff pretty much instantly.
I spent a week with David and he was like crying every day.
Yeah, it was pretty sad.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, didn't I go live that night?
You did.
You, me, and Anthony went live that night. Interesting.
Yes. And you told me after the stream that your son died, and I'm like, what? And then I realized, yeah, okay, you are the psychopath.
And then you got these keyboard jihadis. Thinking, aha, we know how to finally get to him. All the years of threats and insults and threatening the family members and so on. Well, just start talking about his son. That'll work. Yeah. Wait for it. AP, what? No, I was about to say, what were we talking about right before we went live? No, well, we'll keep everything a surprise, ladies and gentlemen. Everything will
Yes,
be a
yes,
surprise.
yes.
But
People in the
everyone,
chat are now saying that turkey is better than chicken. Like, what is wrong with people? This is your audience. This is your audience. Just look at that.
yeah, I don't know. That's tough, man, because I fry my turkeys, so they're banging. I
Turkey.
deep fry I deep fry a turkey every year. Well, I usually deep fry two because we have a bunch of family members, so I deep fry 2 giant fat turkeys.
I don't know. I'm losing faith in these people.
Yeah, pretty bad. All right. Well, hang on. Let's read a couple of super chats real quick, and then we'll jump into this video. Super dope video that's going to crush and humiliate AP for being on the atheist side. Oh, it's actually a really good discussion. Although Stephen Meyer clearly wins. Who do you think would be targeted due to Bukhari 36:11? What is that reference? Bukhari 36:11. Great. Now I have to look stuff up for 17 hours.
I relate the traditions of Allah's messenger to you, for I would rather fall from the sky than attribute something to him falsely. But when I tell you a thing which is between you and me, then no doubt. Am I looking up the right thing? Yeah. Then no doubt war is guile. Guile. How do you say that word? Guile.
What?
Guile.
Is it
Anyway.
Guile?
Yes.
Guile.
I
Why would you
heard
think it's
Allah's
wild?
messenger saying, in the last days of this world, there will appear some young, foolish people who will use in their claim the best speech of all people, the Quran, and they will abandon Islam as an arrow going through the game.
Oh, yeah.
They believe will not go beyond their throats. So wherever you meet them, kill them, for he who kills them shall get a reward on the day of resurrection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is people leaving Islam and saying to kill them.
There is an interpretation of this in depending on which Muslim community and school you are part of, but often they will say that many scholars will interpret this as referring to what they call the Khawarij or the Khariji, which are people who go.
Oh, interesting. So that's how they applied that to them.
Yeah,
and so in that case, it could have been a fabricated hadith later on to attack those guys.
Yeah. Because there were those people who were going away from the Sunni and Shia circles and going their own way and becoming allegedly extreme.
Your own way.
They were like, well, those people, they have left Islam. They're not real Muslims. So they practice and they preach and they pronounce and all of that, but they are dangerous. They're
not on the hawk.
They're not on the hawk.
They're not on the hawk.
Yeah.
They got no hikmah.
Yeah, and in today's time, people will apply that to some extreme jihadist groups, and the extreme jihadist groups will apply it to the regular ones, and the Sufis will apply it to the Salafis, and the Salafis will apply it to the others, and so on. It's just a giant mess. Like one of those things that somebody probably fabricated at some point, and now it's like, oh, this is of course not about us. It's about those other people among our faith. Yeah, that's how it always goes.
Yeah, weird stuff. AP, could you take care of this, guys? You forgot to give a content warning. I totally forgot because we're not used to it, but this person is right. We need a content warning.
No. Yes. During this stream, we will possibly address sensitive topics, and occasionally we might say things like "darn" or "gosh." So viewer discretion
or golly or jeepers. But AP, what if an atheist happens to stumble into the live stream while Stephen Meyer is saying something? What then?
It's that person may be traumatized, so always be advised, be warned. There's going to be very sensitive content here. Warning, viewer discretion is advised, and always observe all reasonable warnings and take care of your children.
Yeah, so I think that meets all the general requirements of Apostate Aladdin, who is the supreme commander of all content that we're allowed to post on YouTube. Thank you. Chaos says, hey, AP, I respect you a lot, but I'm curious what it would take to convince you that Christianity is true.
It would take for chaos to become order, for chaos to disappear permanently, and for only order to prevail.
You know who else wanted order?
Hitler? Is that what you were going to say?
That's what popped into my head, yeah.
I knew it.
Apu Pakar Al Puff Daddy says, Grand Mufti Smurf, oops, wrong reference, Quran, only bear, AP. When you were a Sufi mystic, did you believe in the sun setting in a puddle or the moon splitting? So did you believe these issues with Islam?
I didn't really think about that. As a Sufi, you spend your time more on doing moronic
You
things.
said moron.
Yeah. And viewer discretion is advised, dear viewers. You don't want to be offended. Please be very careful watching this live stream.
Well,
no,
yeah,
I did.
Two warnings are better than one, I always say.
Yeah.
Better
Yes,
safe,
yeah.
better safe than sorry, and safety is my middle name.
Yes. Being a Sufi is kind of is complicated. It is more about it focuses much more about your personal effort to believe and to practice and to humble yourself, and it goes to really extreme things. And I felt very romantic about it when I was a Sufi as well. And like remember reading texts from old well-known Sufi scholars that talk about things like annihilating the self and things like that. Like that's the kind of stuff that Sufism focuses on. It has this very, very Eastern influence thinking. So it focuses more on that stuff. I don't ever remember thinking about specific hadiths like that. The issue is when I read the Quran and I encountered some of the ridiculous descriptions of the natural world, I was that was really difficult. So, and that's also one of the main reasons why I actually started leaving or questioning and eventually left Islam.
Follow-up question. Not sure why everyone's interested in this right now, but Caspian says, AP, is Sufism at least in some way more benign than mainstream Islam?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I would say so too.
Hell, that's so stupid. It is in a way. So as I just said, it focuses more on a different aspect of Islam, more on, not more on. Stop distracting with that, David. Always thinking about the bad stuff. It focuses more on the personal, spiritual development than on the other stuff, than on political stuff. It still does have those aspects, though. It still does. It is still Islam in the end. It still has the same scripture. It still has the same history. Still has the same end goal and all of that. And I did learn as a Sufi, for example, that it may be soon that the events of the end will come and we will fight the Jews, always the Jews. So in a Sufi environment, I did grow up thinking, "Oh, we will fight the Jews." That's never absent. So. You could say, though, that it is in a way better than the average, because the average is already terrible, and Sufism may be a little bit more benign. Yeah.
All right, let's go through. So you heard it here, folks. Sufism is true.
Don't be a goofy Sufi.
Don't be a goofy Sufi. All right, let's jump into some of this discussion. Again, this is a comedian who's doing a podcast who has on Stephen Meyer and Michael Shermer. They had some introductions and some little chit chat at the beginning. I chopped that off. We'll jump right into once they're actually getting into a point here.
I thought we were going to talk about serious stuff and like comedian.
This is the perfect serious stuff.
Okay. All right.
So I'm going to start with I'm going to pose these questions to you, Michael, and then you can piggyback.
You ever seen this guy?
You're the skeptic here. We do know, it seems, that we're here. Most people are here who are engaged in the best that's been thought and said. We educate ourselves. We study science. We study philosophy. We study history. And I think we do it all because we want to get closer to the truth. because there is this idea we seem to have this inherent need to know what is actually real, what is actually true, what is the bedrock I can moor into, regardless of where the winds blow. And one of the liabilities of being an intellectual and reading all the science and all the history and all the philosophy is that you find yourself moving in a circle. You asked that question when the last time you guys spoke. Will we ever come to a consensus? My suggestion is no, not as long as we keep talking the way we do, and not.
What are you laughing at with this dude?
What kind of a crappy studio is that? It's like just put some chairs together and some table, and then wrote the name of the podcast on there.
That's how people do it now. You just get a cool table. You get a cool table. All we need is a big room. We should have a studio like this and bring people in and sit them down and have discussions like this.
We should.
But some people trick out their studios. Some people are just like, okay, I need a table, need 3 mics. Yeah. 3 mics and a laptop, and then we're
crappy
good.
Is better. It actually looks good. Stop criticizing everything.
And then some sign in the background.
Yeah,
I think
I even have a problem with it. They do not. You can see the different white balance with each camera angle. Just leaving that there. Fix that, dude. Fix that, dude, in your next podcast.
Attribution of faith is the idea that there must be something that all of us sort of understand as truth. Right. So my first question to you is...
Yeah, see, people wouldn't even have noticed it, except I had to say something. Oops.
I wasn't really paying attention, but this one is like really, really, really bad in comparison to the other one.
Do you believe in an objective truth, in a higher truth, in the idea that we are... What is that thing that we're all looking for?
Yeah.
Where is that thing?
Truth with a small t. That is something confirmed to such a degree it would be reasonable to offer your provisional assent. That is to say, most people think this is there's a lot of evidence. The evidence converges to this one conclusion, doesn't converge to some other conclusion. So it's reasonable for today to assume this is true, and keep an open mind just in case it could be refuted tomorrow. The Big Bang Theory, the theory of evolution, climate change is human-caused, vaccines work or masks don't work, whatever it is.
But those are all measurable truths that rely on data and fact.
Are you after something else?
I am.
Well, like what?
Well, a meta truth, because I'm after the idea that there might be within those truths there might be an all-encompassing truth. So let's take.
Well, you mean so that we could even approach the question that is rationality. That is. What's the justification for rationality? Is that what you're asking? That we can actually understand truth at all?
I'm suggesting that if you extrapolate in one direction or the other, it seems that, for example, You
get where this is going?
No.
Yeah, I'm having a little trouble here. So it seems like he's... So Michael Shermer's talking about there are truths and so on. And this guy's like, is there some... like ultimate truth that like all this, I guess, like all this is a part of or something like this. And it's all, and like, are we like trying to get to some ultimate truth about things? Sounds like something like that.
The thing is, the first response that Michael Shermer gave to the host's question, I don't even remember what it was about, because the response was like, I heard the response, I'm like, okay, dude. Like, okay, now can you just give a normal response? I don't know. It sounded like a research paper put together into a brief sentence or something.
All right, so let's see.
We admire certain things and seem to our head raises and we look in.
I actually like this point. Yeah, I forgot. He makes an important point here, and this is where I realize, oh, okay, this guy's actually pretty sharp here. Let me back up just a little bit to get what he's talking about, because this is cool.
Direction or the other. It seems that, for example, we admire certain things and seem to our head raises and we look in the direction there as opposed to there, because we know there lies the good things we may never reach. We can't measure.
What is your problem laughing at this guy?
Michelle says,
huh?
Michelle says this sounds like weed talk. So
That's funny. No, again, he's making an important point here. This is cool.
Thinking of perfection. Let's just take the idea of Jesus Christ as the symbol. Forget Messiah or the man. The idea of this 33-year-old man who sacrificed his own body for a higher principle.
And later in the discussion, he doesn't sound like he's a Christian. He sounds like he takes this stuff like metaphorically and stuff like that. But the point he's making here, interesting in terms of you can have something that you're like drawn towards, and if you're thinking of like empirically verifiable scientific things, it doesn't make sense that you would be drawn to that as opposed to something else. But let let him.
Messiah or the man. The idea of this 33-year-old man who sacrificed his own body for a higher principle, tortured on the cross, and said, "I love you anyway, and I forgive you." That idea, I mean, he lost everything, unjustly accused, all that stuff. And then you have Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar, the most powerful man in the world. You would think that from a measurable scientific analysis, you're better off being Julius Caesar than you are Jesus Christ. There's a lot of pain over here and a lot of pleasure in this direction.
Wait a minute, wasn't he assassinated?
Well, he may have.
He's got to change his example, right? Because he's saying, hey, if you had to pick between, if you're just thinking scientifically and materialistically and so on, you had to choose between being like Jesus, who's going to get tortured and killed, and is innocent, or be most powerful man in the world like Julius Caesar, then who are you gonna go with? Seems like you should want to be Julius Caesar, and yet there's something about people like Jesus that draws us in that direction. And of course, Michael Sherman, hey, Caesar was assassinated too. So he's going to have to change his example here.
But let's just take anybody like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or anybody who's lived this, or a movie star, for God's sake. It could be Brad Pitt or Ryan Reynolds. We seem to admire this other thing. We seem to admire the footsteps that Jesus walked, or even if we're not Christians, over the footsteps this other person walked. And
you know what that just reminded me of? It was actually fun. This was a long time ago. So this is when Tim Tebow, really, really awesome, nice Christian who grew up doing like missionary work with his family and stuff, homeschooled, became the most phenomenal college football player in the country, then became a professional, went to the NFL, and wasn't nearly as good. I know, guys, I know you got a bunch of Tim Tebow fans and stuff out there. His completion percentage was like 45% or something like that. That's not good for an NFL quarterback, but he just kept winning. He just kept winning and stuff when they finally put him in. And they ended up going to the playoffs. They ended up beating the Pittsburgh Steelers in the first round of the playoffs. No one expected it because they got Tim Tebow, who was not. He was great. He was great when he needed to run. He was great when it went. They call it like going schoolyard football, where you just kind of scramble around and wait for someone to come open and stuff like that, or you can take off running and stuff like that. But as far as like precision plays, he just wasn't good at it. Anyway, they beat the Pittsburgh Steelers in the first round, and then they had to go play the New England Patriots with Tom Brady, who's the GOAT, who's the greatest quarterback of all time. Anyway, I remember reading a comparison of Tom Brady and Tim Tebow. And a lot of them were funny. It's like Tom Brady runs like he's wearing space boots. Tim Tebow runs like he's wearing Acme rocket boots, right? Because Tebow's great at running and Tom Brady sucked. But one of the comparisons that this just reminded me of, they said, Tom Brady is the man that every teenage boy wants to be. Tim Tebow is the guy that every teenage boy's mom wants him to be. You catch that?
Yeah.
If you're talking teenage boy, what do you want to be? I want to be like Tom Brady. He's got Giselle and all this stuff, and he's the greatest quarterback in the world. And Tim Tebow, that's what every teenage boy's mom would want him to be. I want you to be a good boy like Tim Tebow. But anyway, it kind of reminds me of this, of like, hey, if you're just looking at empirical empirical evidence or something like that, if you're just looking at this from a materialistic perspective, who you want to be like, Jesus or Elon Musk? I mean, how do you not go with Elon Musk? So the fact that lots of people are drawn towards something else, it's like there's this other component of reality that is not included in this just straightforward materialistic system. I think that's what he's getting at. That's why I thought it was interesting too.
The problem with the example that you gave, David, is that nobody in the world cares about American football. So when you bring up an example from American football, you lose like the attention of everyone in the room except for some Americans, because everyone is like, Tom T-Bone,
apostate Aladdin was right about you. You cannot be trusted. The dark side of live streaming with Apostate Prophet here. Completely unprovoked attack on the greatest sport in the history of humanity.
The funny thing about this Brian Callen guy is,
look at that sign though. That's awesome, isn't it?
yeah, I don't know how long this took for him to get to this point, but he basically like this could have been like one sentence or two sentences, and he I don't know, like he lost me completely and lost half the room with setting up this whole question or this whole topic that he's talking about.
You're saying he could have made that point much more succinctly and said, hey, if we're just thinking like materialistically, empirically, and so on, which I assume, Michael Shermer, is how you're thinking, it would make sense if you're, drawn to something to be, want to be drawn to successful figures like Elon Musk. And yet there's this other thing where we're drawn to being like even self-sacrificially, dying as an innocent person, something that draws us there. So how does that work into, like, is that just some weird fluke in our human development or something like that?
Instead of doing that, this guy goes into like, and considering the metaphysical aspect of naturally desiring to observe the truth of this and this and that, and also considering that this isn't this and this and that and that, and there is of course the meta aspect, and the meta this and that, and meta this and that, and meta that and this and this and that and that and this. Anyway, Jesus or Caesar? Like,
why do you have to hate on anything that anyone else does? I've never seen anyone that you don't know, and you start watching and you're not like, let me tell you everything he's doing this wrong. This is why it sucks.
Yeah, that's what I am, man. I have to criticize something.
First Candace Owens, now this guy.
And that seems to suggest that maybe that person dovetails along the sort of the grain of the universe. There's a better way to go. What about that?
Okay, so you might be after something, say, different kinds of truths. So I make the distinction, say, empirical truths, like the examples I just gave. Perhaps the Big Bang Theory is wrong, and there's some other better theory this could happen, and so forth. But what you're talking about is maybe something slightly different, like a political truth or a religious truth or a moral truth. What did Dr. King stand for?
I'm talking about an overall truth.
Yeah,
because you are
a metaphysical belief.
Yes, because Michael, you
comprehensive worldview or philosophical perspective that gives coherence to your understanding of all of reality.
I think that's what we're doing here. I think that's what we are.
See, that's what I like. Like this guy, like he gets like a gist of something in his head. Like, why are we kind of drawn over here? And they ask these guys about it, and like, oh, you're talking about like a comprehensive metaphysical truth that may be like beyond certain, limited things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what is actually cool? Because then matter of fact, this is how lots of podcasts should be. It should be some guys who have some insights and some disorganized thinking, and you bring people on who can like clarify things for you. That's a good idea. That's a good approach. Yeah. Instead of just being a know-it-all like AP who starts pointless debates in the chat by committing blasphemy against American football. And then everyone goes off on a tangent.
Well, what is this? Black Angel made a good point. Said Candace blocked AP from her OF. That's why he hates her. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
True. I think that's why we are sitting down and talking, because whether we want to admit it or not, we're trying to get to a deeper understanding of the
I'd say
world
that
we live
exists.
And by the way, that's interesting too. So he kind of he has this separate point of, look at this. So you've got Stephen Meyer, and he believes in God, and Michael Shermer, and then me. I'm a comedian. Yet we're here and we're like trying to figure out like ultimate reality. Like what is going on? What is this that we are like seeking when we sit down for something like this? What is it we're seeking? Are we just like trying to learn some specific new thing, or are we aiming at that like, metaphysical, over all-encompassing metaphysical truth or something like that? Go ahead, say something slick, AP. No, you want to. You want to insult somebody. You can't go 5 seconds.
I'm just gonna let it go for now and continue listening.
All right.
That kind of truth, the search for truth as a truth.
So what is that about?
Yeah, because we have to function in the world, and we have to solve problems to survive and flourish, and that involves understanding the way the world actually is. And that's what our brains are well designed to do, and we are reasonably rational to that extent. So,
but chimps don't have that, and
well, they do to a certain extent, but far less than we do. They have a time horizon much shorter than our. We are really quite unusual as a primate. But so if you're asking, well, I don't know. So let's go back to these different kinds of truths.
The funny thing is, earlier Michelle in the chat basically just pointed it out in a very short and very crude way, maybe, and said this sounds like we talk, but pretty much that's basically what it boils down to. It's like this whole conversation, if you wanted to, dumb it down and use significantly fewer words, it's basically like, so what exactly are we after? Why are we trying to find out the truth, and what is actually truth, and why are we so obsessed with it, and why is it so romantic to us? And that's basically what it is.
And why do I love smoking these shekels so much?
Oh, well, this stuff is really good, by the way.
Yeah. So, these are exactly the sort of questions that would come up while Cheech and Chong are smoking. With Snoop Dogg.
You mentioned Jesus. So here's a question. Do you mean, was Jesus crucified, dead for 3 days, resurrected, and the purpose of this was to forgive our original sins and so on? As a kind of...
What are you laughing?
Houston
so funny?
Houston posted a Tahweed talk. Weed talk.
Truth. The question is, do you mean that it really happened, or metaphorical truth, or a mythical truth?
For me, it's a metaphorical truth, right?
Yeah, that's what I meant. So for him, he's talking about like the truth about Jesus meant like a metaphorical truth or something like that. He's pointing out we're still drawn to something like that. So what exactly is it that we're being drawn to, or what is it that we find attractive in all this?
For me, for example, I would say let's take democracy, the free market, the Constitution, or let's actually take the idea. Let's take monotheism for a second. Now, well, what's the value there? Well, the value is that we have one Father. So that must mean we're all brothers and sisters. The idea that we're all of the same moral worth, and our justice system is predicated upon that fact. Okay, I can't measure that. I can't measure. When we all kind of believe in equality and we speak about it.
I think you.
Yeah, so here, taking something like a belief in equality of people, or statements that are along those lines, all men are created equal or something like that. That's not something, I think he's just sloppily getting to the point that these aren't things you discover with a microscope or telescope. You don't discover these things in a lab. How do you discover them at all? Something along those lines.
Measure it.
Well, you could measure it because it seems ultimately to create more bounty than the other way of living.
So you ask
right?
people, would you rather live in a democracy or an autocracy? Would you rather live in North Korea or South Korea? People will tell you, they'll vote with their feet. That's an objective measure of a deeper metaphorical truth or metaphysical truth of freedom and liberty, autonomy. And that's the direction our civilization's been moving, haltingly, for centuries. So I argue, contrary to actually most philosophers and political scientists and so on, this is not just an accident of history, that we're marching in a kind of direction toward more freedom and autonomy and individual choice than not.
To what end?
To what end? Ultimately, you're in control of your body. You make decisions for yourself. And a political system that encourages that is better than one that doesn't.
That's what I've been thinking in my entire for many years now. Isn't that kind of like a common thought? Isn't that the basic regular way of thinking? I didn't think that was very special.
Yeah, Brian Collin here. How does he not call it the Brian Collin show and make it a call-in show? How do you not, Brian? How do you not do that? That's obvious. The Brian Collin show. Don't have guests in there with you. Have them call in. My goodness, this is like basic. It's like basic social media stuff. What did you just say? No, I got distracted by his dumb sign. Go ahead. I'm about to say something.
No, his point about humans going toward being a freedom control charge and things like that, and he kind of made it sound like this is his position, despite popular opinion or something like that. That's what it sounded like to me. And I thought,
that's why you responded. You're like, no, that's actually common. You're not going.
Yeah,
against, you're not a rogue. You're not a maverick here on this. Yeah.
That's how I saw it though in the entire time, and I never thought that this is like something special to figure out, because it's quite obvious. And
now they don't go in this direction, but this is an interesting follow-up to that would be because you can look to recent centuries and see massive progress in going in that direction that Michael Shermer is talking about and Brian Collin is talking about. But the way he defines it is, hey, yes, we do tend to go towards more freedom, more personal autonomy, and so on. Less control of other people over what you do and your decisions and so on. But we're kind of seeing the breakdown of that entire system, right? Like if everyone is his own thing and gets to do what he wants to do, I'm not sure that lasts for a very long time. In other words, it looks like everything starts to break down because everyone loses any common ground that they had, and everything starts to break down. So the follow-up for me, which again they're not going into, would be, okay, once everything goes off the rails with that each man, the ideal is for all of us to just decide for ourselves what we want to do. And so once that breaks down, because everyone goes in 10 million different directions, it seems like you need something else in there too. It seems like you need something else in the mix that is that prevents everyone from going completely insane. And so what else do you need in your equation? Because I mean, I think we're at a point in history where you got to figure that out, because it looks like everything's going off the rails.
It's a funny thing, right? It might look like right now that humans or civilization is going progressively with time more toward autonomy, more toward freedom, toward establishing or finding a system where you actually have access to that autonomy, where that is the standard. But you could go back to ancient civilizations like the Greek civilization, for example, like Athens, and look at them and come to the conclusion that they were significantly more free and autonomous than many of the later civilizations that came after them and basically dominated the world for a millennium or so. And what if instead of humans going toward a direction where they eventually will have this autonomy, it is just humans trying over and over again and landing, in a I don't know, things falling apart, and then you try it again. You start again from the beginning and try to go toward that, try to yearn and go toward that freedom and autonomy again, and then you fail again in the end. Everything collapses, and you start from the beginning again, and so on. It just goes on like this forever and ever. It sounds like what Nietzsche would describe in rather crazy terms about the constant cycle,
Always goes back to some German hero of yours, doesn't it? Everything's always, let me tell you about order.
Yes.
And the man who almost got it for us.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you? That's why you don't want to be born in Germany, folks. Final boss of Noah. Apu Bakr Al Puff Daddy says, D Wood, could you please expound on the difference between Judeo-Christianity and Islam on science, specifically secondary causation, impact on theology? I would have to, I don't know, I'd have to think about that. I've never been thinking. Most of the stuff I discuss in Islam is evaluating Muhammad as a prophet or the Quran as the speech of God and responding to like arguments that Muslims use. So I've never really been thinking. I did investigate Islam a little bit in terms of what they think about the problem of evil type stuff back when I was working on my dissertation. But generally, I'm not going in a philosophical or scientific direction. But just so everyone knows, secondary causation, that's like God creates things, but then he gives them the ability to do things sort of on their own after he creates them and so on. But yeah, I'd have to think about that and look into it. I mean, I can think of how some Quran passages would be relevant to that stuff, but I'm not sure how Muslims have been thinking about that.
For some reason, I seem to be missing the. I don't know if there is an actual direction that this conversation is going so far that they're having. If there is an actual, if they're actually following a proper line, and no,
they get it. Yeah, he goes into all this. So he leads into monotheism, and he's thinking like metaphorically. He's just basically like, this is some stuff I'm wondering here. Like, why are we drawn to this? What is, how does, it's like kind of a different kind of observation, right? Like it's an observation about ourselves. You have information that you gather from the world and you come to conclusions and stuff. And you're like, but here there's something about us that makes us drawn to these certain things, or there are certain like presuppositions in society that we can't defend empirically, and yet they're required for us to believe in them. And so seems like he's saying, hey, you're a skeptic, you're a theist. How are you, how do you account for these kinds of things? But then they get into some of their scientific stuff, because at the end of the day, you've got a skeptic here with a PhD in the history of science, and you've got a theist here who, and it's interesting, they share a lot of methodology in common. They both take a Bayesian approach to things. And anyway, but I know you got to complain. I know you got to complain about anything.
What a waste of time so far.
Yes, we could be watching Piers Morgan talk about the Jews.
Yeah, of course. We could be watching, I don't know, Norman Finkelstein and Destiny.
David, the video essay on your son equals deeply moving. Yes, I agree. Varun. D Wood, happy Ramadan. Where is the pizza, though? I ate
Mr. Morelli.
I still keep getting these challenges. David, why don't you try Ramadan fasting? I did a quick post where I said my life is basically like Ramadan fasting, because I go to sleep at like 8 a.m. and then I sleep and then I wake up and it's almost evening. So it's like my life is basically Ramadan fasting. They're still like, no, but you don't get any water. Okay, so I don't eat. If I don't drink water while I'm sleeping, then I'm Ramadan fasting, right? I'm thinking about just doing it. I'm thinking about just making a video. All right, guys, here's me going to sleep, and I'm going to keep the camera on me the entire time and play it back fast speed. So I'm not sneaking any food. Oh my goodness, what is this? What is it? AP Turkey is a new hybrid. It's great for Thanksgiving and picnics too. Is that a real thing? Did someone combine those animals? I know they've done it. They've combined like lions and tigers, and they call it a liger and stuff like that.
That's funny.
Turkey.
No chicken of a breed without feathers on its neck. Huh. That's a thing.
Is it?
That's weird.
That's funny.
This reminds me of the conflict in Turkey, by the way, the country Turkey. So there has always been this long conflict between Turkey and the Kurdish population, and the Kurdish separatists who want to have autonomy for themselves and establish Kurdistan, which it actually did exist in history, and want to make it autonomous or independent from Turkey. Mm-hmm. And they have been fighting about this for a long, long time now. So I thought, how about you just, I make a proposal to resolve this conflict once and for all, just don't call it Turkey, don't call it Kurdistan. Just make one country that is neither, that is not about your identity nor about that identity, or maybe it's a mix of both. Instead of Turkey and Kurdistan, just call it Turdistan, and then you will have a perfect country. Problem solved. Anyway, just a thought.
Here you have it, UN. This is how to make peace. This is how you do it. Hey, but could we do the same thing with Israel and Gaza? That's the question. Well, we'll have to think about it.
Yeah.
Is it true that in Surah 19, the dude confused Miriam, the mother of Jesus, with Miriam, the sister
Yes.
of Aaron from the Old Testament? Yeah, there are actually a couple of
Yeah.
passages, and there are even like hadiths that are relevant to this. But yes, the author of the Quran did not know, because they have the same name in Arabic, did not know that Mary, the mother of Jesus, and Miriam, the sister of Aaron and Moses, the author of the Quran thought they're the same person because they have the same name in Arabic.
I made a video about this, which I think is the best video that you can find on YouTube, which is called "One Mistake Destroys Islam." Yeah.
Go ahead and toss that in the chat if you get a chance, and then someone can check it
No.
out later.
No.
All right, so Vlad Nader, go ahead and check that out. You heard the title. You could check that out on AP's channel. He's going to go through it. I made a video about that as well, which is far superior to AP's video. Muslims have said to me, Western men don't get jealous for their wives and allow other men to dance with them because they eat pork, because that's how pigs behave. You are what you eat. Don't deny the science. That's Zakir Naik. That's literally a quote from Zakir Naik. You eat pig, you behave like pig. You eat pig, you eat pig, you behave like pig. Oh yeah. He also said, and there's a scientific thing.
Oh yeah, that was from that video. That's true.
There's a scientific thing. We need to just go through that. We need to go through that clip. We need to go through that clip in a live stream and actually watch it.
He goes like, "There's a scientific thing." Like he tries to think about it.
There's a scientific thing. You eat pig, you behave like pig. I'm like, wait a minute. How did I miss that one in biology? Yeah, it turns out that if you eat pig, then you'll start behaving like pig. And if you eat a chicken, you're going to start acting like a chicken. And if you eat some lettuce, you're going to start behaving like lettuce, in which case you're going to follow Zakir Naik. Let us do some improvisational comedy. Golly gee jeepers, that was a good content warning. Yes, that was. We do need that. Opinions on Bart Ehrman, Matt Dillahunty, and Myth Vision. Quit trying to get us to go on 50,000 topics, every single thing. Bart Ehrman, disagree. Like the guy. Have some disagreements. Think he's got some philosophical issues. Matt Dillahunty. Matt's in some trouble. Probably, as far as just raw debate skill, probably the best, my view, atheist debater that there is, but he's way too sensitive about being criticized on certain things, even though he would be happy to criticize other positions and so on. Does not deal well with criticism, and he's in trouble now because now people have caught on to that and they know they can just derail him. Myth Vision, we did a show back in the day, like a couple of years ago or something, like Myth Vision. Seems like a nice guy.
Yeah. He's a nice guy. He's a friend.
Yeah, doesn't seem like a jerk. You got some guys who seem like jerks, and he seems like a nice guy.
He's a great person, a very, very nice guy. And I do chat with him occasionally and talk with him on the phone. He's a very nice guy. So he is a friend, actually. Yes.
All right. 2-Bit says, well, golly gee whiz. That's some pretty strong language there, 2-Bits. Pretty little strong. We might have to have another content warning for that harsh language.
Should have put this on age restricted.
Yeah, age. We might need to age restrict this from golly. Matt Schneider said, atheism is so senseless and odious to mankind that it never had many professors. That's true. You know, it's funny, like Isaac Newton used the word professors as in someone who professes something. And he's saying, hey, have you noticed there's not a lot of people who profess atheism, but whenever I would post that quote, I'd get these atheists going, what are you talking about? I have a professor who's an atheist. I was like, dude, he's not talking about your college. He's not talking about your atheist professors at school, guys. Yeah. D. Wood, interesting guest pastor, Reverend Hicham Kacha with Salam Christian Fellowship. He is from Libya and he was in the Muslim Brotherhood. It was great.
That's cool.
I'm trying to think what he's like. Is there a link to that or something like that? Anyway.
Hisham Shahab. I'm just seeing that Jake Shields is fighting with Destiny on Twitter.
When you said fighting, I thought you meant like MMA fight. I was like, oh, this is gonna be messed up, man.
That would be very messed up.
That's gonna be like that dude beating up Sneeko.
No, Jake Shields asked like, "Who is this Destiny weirdo? Where did he come from?" And then Destiny just made a quote tweet and said, "You are an actual clown." And then posted a picture where he says, "For years we were taught 4 million Jews were killed in Auschwitz and 6 million were killed in the Holocaust." A complete misrepresentation of the history. And then Jake starts insulting him and says, "You have a stripper name."
That's true. That's true. When I saw, because I had no clue who Destiny was till I went to the first debate con, and Destiny was on there, and I just thought this was like some stripper or something like that. So it wasn't just that I thought he was a woman; it's that I actually thought something like stripper. You know?
Yeah. But yeah. The thing is, the guy is actually intelligent. Like, agree with his views and his worldviews or not. He's very, very intelligent.
An awesome, phenomenal communicator. Very quick thing. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Jake Shields? No.
No. Destiny is very intelligent.
Destiny.
Yeah.
Smart.
Very
quick. That would not be a conversation that Jake Shields wants to get into because he's gonna get demolished.
Jake Shields just sounds like he had way too many punches to his head and he lost the ability to think and speak properly, so that wouldn't end very well for him. It's very strange that these guys are having a discussion.
Capturing here we go, capturing Kafirs. There's you. There's a picture of you there. Turkey is the greatest country in Anatolia. How dare you disrespect it? Before the Turks, the place was filled with Greeks. Blah. Which is worse, Islam or souvlaki? I think the answer is obvious.
Yeah, that's true.
I love souvlaki, man.
That's true. Turkey. It's Turkey. Turkey.
Turkey.
Yeah.
Turkey. Solitary Emmy says, for the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. This is directed towards all atheists. The invisible things of God from the creation of the world are clearly seen, so that you guys have no excuse.
Okay.
Bukhari 6, Momo got a golden shower from a man. There's some weird, creepy stuff going on with that dude. Well, that's going to be...
Bukhari 6002. The Prophet took a child in his lap for tahniq. He chewed a date in his mouth and the child urinated on him, so he asked for water and poured it over the place of the urine.
Urinating upon one another. That's what they do. That's what they do.
Yeah.
D. Wood, can a Christian believe in evolution? Of course.
Evolution.
Whatever your position is, you're going to have to see how you reconcile it with other things in Christianity. But yeah, obviously you can believe in evolution. I mean, even a young Earth creationist would say, okay, I believe that someone can be wrong about evolution and still believe that Jesus is Lord. In other words, that it's not on the list of core beliefs. I doubt either of you have seen this, but my #1 expose video of Andrew Trafficker Tate is AP. You did great, but Mike Winger did one 34:20. Hey, we should do that.
What?
Mike Winger did a video about Andrew Tate. We have to go through that, dude, because then I could be making fun of Mike Winger the entire time, and you could be making fun of Andrew Tate the entire time. It's like win-win.
Mike Winger made something about Andrew Tate.
Huh. 34 minutes. We can even get through that one. Yeah, we're gonna have to do that, man. We got the nerdiest guy on the planet talking about the top G because he's jealous. Isn't that weird though to pick now as the time? Like Tate's not even. I don't even pay much attention except like when Murdered by Crayons or Milk Bar TV posts something, then I'll pay brief attention. But is anyone still paying attention to Tate?
I remember we were live streaming about him all the time, and then I don't know. I kind of forgot about him. Yeah. Let's see.
Yeah, so if I had to guess, like he had his heyday where he's the most searched man on Google or something like that, and now I'm guessing he's pretty far down that list and not working out for him.
Oh, so Mike Winger had a 10 questions with Mike Winger, and the first question is
where do the questions come from though? Are they from his fans? Like the Wingalings? Every question would be like, "Hey Mike, our hero, on episode 33 of the original Star Trek series, when the Klingons came on the Enterprise, how does this relate to the Bible in 1 Corinthians?" Like every question would be like that from these guys.
You're just jealous because he has more subscribers than you.
Mike Winger. I'm gonna be David Wood is to Mike Winger what Apostate Aladdin is to AP. That's what we're gonna
Yeah, his first topic is Andrew Tate, and this is part of a stream that is 1.5 hours long, and the whole Andrew Tate section is 34 minutes long. So that's what this is. We should
we should check that out, man. We should check that out. We got that again, nerdiest guy on the planet. Vert taking on a sex trafficker. That's got to be some YouTube gold right there.
Yep.
It's just a little late. The Tate thing should have been like last year.
It is it is coming up again because there is a lot of stuff going on. He was recently, Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate were detained a few days ago.
Oh yeah, I saw that. And it was over Aiden. It was over dumb Aiden blurting out, "Hey, I got a message from Andrew Tate. So yeah, they're going to sneak out of the country." Saying this like in a live stream. Yeah, I just got a message from Andrew Tate, and they're going to sneak out of the country. And then people tipped off the British, the UK government, and said, "Hey, Aiden Ross just blurted out that Tate's planning to leave. So if you guys want to do something, you need to do it now." And they said, "Yeah, arrest the guy."
Imagine these are the guys who are streaming, who are popular, and to hang out with Andrew Tate, who brags about being so tough and so great and so intelligent, and you have like the dumbest person in the world is a streamer and entertainer who on live stream reads out a message from Andrew Tate saying, "Yeah, he's gonna escape and he's gonna leave Romania and never come back," and of course, the authorities are like, "Uh-oh, what was that?" So they detain Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate, and the UK issued a thing. What's it called? An extradition request
order.
to Romania, and Romania said Romania approved it and said they will extradite Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate to the UK as soon as all of their trial proceedings in Romania are done. So they will do whatever they do to the Tates in Romania, and then they will ship them to the UK so that the UK can also handle them.
And what's amazing is these guys are still just jumping on people's shows and podcasts, and the case file is completely empty, and all the witnesses are on my side. This is all just a myth. And the only thing I'm even accused of is helping some girls become popular on TikTok and then stealing pennies from them. That's all. That's what all this is about. Clear, and then people, "Whoa, you're right. This does sound like a Matrix attack. It is. That's ridiculous that they would go after you like that." And it's like, my goodness, people, what's he doing? Again, this guy has to actually go on trial, where all of this stuff where all the stuff that he's done and he's actually accused of, and all the actual evidence, and all the witnesses, and all the texts, and the countless videos where he has admitted to everything he's done, and then it's going to be, why did you say that what you're actually accused of is just taking TikTok pennies from after being nice to a girl? Why'd you say that? In other words, this guy has to go on the stand, and on the stand they can challenge his credibility as a witness by exposing him for lie after lie after lie after lie after lie. And then it's look at all this stuff you said you were doing to deceive these women. Look at all the stuff you said here that you did to deceive men and take advantage of them and take all their money. And then you, for the entire time leading up to your trial, you're lying about absolutely everything that you're accused of and what the actual case is. You're lying about everything. Why should we believe you right now, Andrew Tate? And that man's going to look all kinds of stupid.
Yeah. So in the UK, there are now 10 rape cases against them, for which the UK wants them to be sent over.
The Matrix.
And in Romania, they of course have the rape investigations and the human trafficking investigations ongoing, and the human trafficking is just guaranteed to be a big trouble. Which is why, by the way, Andrew Tate recently said, he always talks about, oh, they're going to do this to me. The Matrix is doing this and that to me. So he said that the Matrix is going to put him in prison probably for a long time, and they will try to silence him and and he was saying just a year ago, he was saying how nothing's going to happen. I will walk in there and nothing is going to come out of this case, and I will be freed. And in the end, they will look very, very stupid. And now he changed his message. Now he's saying they will put me away for a while, for a long time, because I speak the truth. No, it's because you're a human trafficker.
And just imagine how dumb the fans are. That you can, hey, look, here's 10 women accusing him of rape or human trafficking or this or that. But where's the proof? Where's the proof? Whereas Andrew Tate goes, oh, this was a Matrix attack, and they take it as indisputable proof. Like no evidence. No, like everything the guy says is a lie. He doesn't have any evidence that this is all just some Matrix attack or something like that, but they'll just mindlessly go along with that. And guys, that's what manipulators do. They program you to only listen to them and to reject anyone else who's refuting and destroying them. Please impression Jordan Peterson and Alex Jones. What's your response, AP?
How about no?
Oh, we got to do it, or all the frogs are going to turn gay. There you go.
Well, that's a difficult matter. Yeah, that's a yeah, whatever.
Fun fact: the name Quran sounds like the Hungarian word Koran, which in translation means early. Lols. Hey, if that's true, then any Hungarian writing from, if you can get something, wherever that goes back to, any book or something like that use the word, they'll like, oh, you see, this is a reference to the Quran. It's a prophecy. All right. Back to Brian Collin, whom AP hates and despises for some reason.
Wait, we're still talking about this? I thought we were done with it.
No, quit being a loser. I want to actually let Stephen Meyer and Michael Shermer make some interesting points instead of the Brian Collin talk for 3 hours in this interview, in his own interview show.
I know it's better because
agreed to this because I thought we were going to talk about Michael Myers, and here we are talking about Michael Shermer.
Pretty dope.
you ask the people what they'd prefer.
That's funny. That was actually a Captain Kirk mask. They just spray painted it white, and they made the eyeball holes bigger and to make it look creepier. The Michael Myers mask. It's a Captain Kirk mask.
And they're not being threatened by the dictator to be hauled off to Siberia if they give the wrong answer. They'll tell you that. We know.
But so then if that's the case, it does create not just less suffering, it also and it doesn't just encourage the angels of our better nature, it also helps human beings realize their potential to do things that are astonishing. For example, with your book, the idea that we may be one day able to figure out that there is a code to the universe. And there had to have been a first mover to that code. That's a fascinating idea. And if that's the case, then that would govern our behavior.
Well, it's interesting that the system.
Why did he say angels of our better nature? Isn't that better angels of our nature?
Why do you have to nitpick everything anyone says? The man's making an important point here that, hey, Yes, maybe the way you're coming at this, Michael, is correct, and it's just this. But if it's actually this other thing, this first mover, shouldn't we want to know that sort of thing instead of being a bunch of dumb skeptics all the time?
That's the
And
thing
then
when somebody.
you're like, angels of better nature. Whoa.
But it's like, wait a minute, that was totally wrong. So I got totally stuck on that. I didn't even hear the
You're,
rest.
first of all, he speaks fluent English. You speak terrible, broken mixture of German and Turkish.
Angels better is. I'm pretty sure it's better angels of our nature, isn't it?
You thought wrong. Look it up.
Okay, I'll look it up. Ha! The better angels of our nature. He said angels of our better nature.
On the Trust Me Bro website. Nice try. Come on.
Yeah.
All right. Before Brian was rudely interrupted by nitpicking,
Michael and I both affirm the political system, libertarian system, is predicated on a philosophical premise that is not directly observable. That is that humans are made in the image of God, that they have intrinsic dignity as a result of that, and therefore we say that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Now, with that as a premise, we can then measure whether or not people prefer to live in that type of a system that accords them that intrinsic dignity, or North Korea.
Right.
And I'm not going to argue with Michael about North Korea. We're entirely.
But you're exactly right.
Right. So there are both observables and unobservables as we begin to think about the big questions, and the God question, I think, is a question of metaphysics, but it's also a question of science, and even the most staunch atheists inadvertently reveal that they accept that as well. Richard Dawkins, for example, has said that the universe we observe has precisely the properties we should expect if at bottom there's no purpose, no design, nothing but blind, pitiless indifference, where blind, pitiless indifference is shorthand for undirected material processes. And I think that's an incredibly helpful statement that he makes. I'm on the opposite.
Why? Why do you think it's
because so
I'm trying to, because like you, APL is kind of, I'm trying to follow the trajectory. The trajectory was this dude, Colin, says, hey, there seems to be something. He brings up a couple issues. Hey, we seem to be drawn to being like or something as good that doesn't make sense just from an empirical observation. It's not stuff you discover with a microscope or something like that. But we tend to be drawn to people like Jesus more than being like Elon Musk in certain ways. And yet, how does that make sense? And then and then he's talking about a first mover. And then, hey, when we have discussions like this, even though we're on different pages of a lot of things, it seems like we're trying to discover the truth. So is there some sort of ultimate truth? He's bringing up all these issues, and then it gets into politics and certain ideas. And then Michael Shermer responds, well, this is just like, it's our personal preference. We prefer to live like this. So there's going to be a thrust in that direction. And then Stephen Meyer steps in and says, well, yeah, but the claims that this is based on, that we should be moving towards this, the claims, those aren't something you go out and discover scientifically. But once you have them, if we grant them, that we all have intrinsic worth and value and so on, we're created in the image of God, that we have these rights because we're created, that our Creator has endowed us with these rights, then we can say, hey, these systems work better with that or something like that. So he's bringing back into the idea, he's saying this is more than just us preferring something over another scenario. If there is one word of criticism that comes out of your mouth about some irrelevant thing, you're like, but look at the tie he's wearing. Whoa, what about that?
No, the thing is, what I'm thinking to myself is, I wonder if Michael Shermer and the other guy here are thinking, why is this guy trying so hard? And why is he... What
Which one?
is he even talking about?
Wait, which one?
The Colin guy.
Yeah, with me, it's kind of like, dude, you've got Michael Shermer. I would love to have a. I'd love to have a. I mean, I've debated the guy, but I'd love to. I mean,
I would want to
if I had Michael
let
Shermer on and Stephen Meyer, I would be asking them questions and getting their perspective and not talking for 10 minutes straight.
This guy is just like, it sounds like he's high and he's just talking about all of the things that he's wondering about when he's high. And we have so far not heard much from the two people who actually have deep thoughts that need to be heard and taken seriously. And he should be, he should be asking them questions and let them talk, let them discuss with each other, instead of this whole lecture, which is like, which sounds like a very I'm sorry, I'm going to be very critical here, but which sounds like a very, very long long-winded pointless,
it's long-winded
rant. Long-winded.
It's long-winded, you German.
Pointless
You Turkish German.
Like, why would somebody say long-winded? Like, just say it the right way. Say long-winded. See, all completely messed up. But yeah. So it's I don't know. Why is he going on these rants? It's like it's very hard for me to follow.
Yeah,
it's very hard for many people to follow. And I don't think it's actually going anywhere. The questions that he has on his mind are questions that he could prepare and ask his guests here, and they could go into those very deeply, and it would be very interesting.
In his defense, see, that's the thing. The moment you start attacking someone, my inclination is, let me try and defend it. He doesn't. To be fair, he doesn't call this an interview. It's a discussion. So it seems like he has thoughts, and he wants to sit down with some experts. Go ahead and share his perspective on things, and then get some additional information and clarification from the guys he's interviewing. So just it's not a Q&A. It's hey guys, here's some things I'm wrestling with. Let me go ahead and break it all down for you, and then you can give me your insights on this. So I think that's where he's going.
By the time
you don't have to hate him for that, dude. You don't have to hate him for that. That's what I'm saying.
The show will be over by the time he's done breaking it down.
I think these guys are about to jump into some stuff. Let's go ahead and see.
Okay.
You know what would be funny? Hey, this would be awesome. This would be like the greatest thing ever. Get like two superstar guests. Get like William Lane Craig and Richard Dawkins finally, and do nothing but talk the entire time. And then say we're out of time. And you just end the show like that. That would be awesome.
Just when they're about to answer, you're like, all right, guys, I think.
Well, we're out of time now. That would be classic. We got to try that with someone to mess with them.
That would be some big troll act right there.
That would be cool.
Something to push back on?
Well, because he frames the issue so beautifully. And what he's implying is that metaphysical beliefs, his belief in materialism as a worldview, is the opposite of which is theism, or maybe deism. There's just different metaphysical positions, but that metaphysical views are testable against our observations of the world around us, every bit as much as scientific hypotheses.
Oh, hey, that's interesting. Yeah, I didn't know because I didn't know exactly what he meant by, like, I understand the Richard Dawkins quote that the world has the features of something that is just, it's just blind, pitiless indifference at bottom. So I was like, how did that connect to what he was saying? Where he was saying, like, actually atheists agree with us that these things have like theological implications and so on. And so he's pointing out that the hypothesis that whatever causes our universe is completely indifferent to us is observable in its features. And so I think, that's where he's going. Okay. All right. Good point. And AP's like, what? I don't like his shirt.
He says the universe we observe has precisely the properties we should expect if materialism is true. And what I do in the book is I say that's a really interesting way of framing the issue. Let's now test that and see if what we would expect based on the materialistic hypothesis is actually what we've discovered as we've looked at the world around us carefully.
But all men are created equal is not materialistic. It is metaphysical.
Exactly.
We are starting with, I'm glad you brought that up, because the fact that we are endowed with certain inalienable rights, that is a that is a mythology we have all embraced, and you can measure that when you embrace that metaphysical concept that actually you could disprove mathematically. It gives better measurable results, and which is also why I'm a libertarian, by the way. But individual
3 libertarians. They've all said they're libertarians.
freedom.
Right. Well, the way I put it, Brian, is that political viewpoint is a corollary of monotheism. And what I'm interested in is the deeper question of evaluating the monotheistic metaphysical hypothesis and comparing it with its alternatives, such as materialism,
Right,
which is
which is
also
Dawkins' materialism.
which is every bit as much a metaphysical system as theism or deism or pantheism, and to see which of those metaphysical viewpoints actually comport best with the observations we make about the properties of the universe. And I think Dawkins beautifully frames the issue. I just think he's wrong in his conclusions.
Your book is
See, AP, all you do is complain.
Yes, that's true.
And you love to criticize, and you just focus, like every thought is like, how can I criticize this? Whereas
Yes.
me, I'm like, let me see what's actually going on here, and what good insights are available here, because you are seeing the possible breakdowns of different viewpoints here. So this claim, human beings are created in the image of God and have a certain worth and dignity, and they have rights that are given to us by our Creator. The dude, Colin there, points out that's not something that you could actually just defend. Like, just if you take the claim all men are created equal or something like that, how in the name of common sense you defend that by observation, as far as we're equal. We're not equal in height. We're not equal in intellect. We're not equal in financial resources. No one's equal in those ways. No one's like completely equal to anyone else. 2 twins in the same situation are not equal. So what is it? And the question that just arose was, is it something that we kind of say because it works? We're going to say that human beings have these rights, and we're going to say that because it tends to produce better, it leads to better results in society. So is it just we're saying something because it works? Or does it actually work because it's connected to some sort of metaphysical reality? In other words, do we believe those things and say them just because we found from experience that they actually work? Or are these claims actually true, and that's why they tend to work better? Understand now, AP?
I do understand. I just think what a pointless discussion.
Oh my goodness, this.
Wow, very
rebuttal to
very-
that.
And I think there have been major discoveries in science that are precisely what you wouldn't expect from the scientific materialist or scientific atheist point of view.
There you go.
Number one, the universe
This is why you didn't want to get here.
at the beginning. Number two, the universe has been fine-tuned from the beginning to allow for the possibility of life against all odds. And thirdly, that when we look inside the inner recesses of the cell, we find digital information, nanotechnology, complex circuitry, the kinds of things that do not arise from undirected material processes, but instead, based on our uniform and repeated experience, which is the basis of all scientific reasoning, only arise from the activity of an intelligent agent. And Dawkins himself has made statements that reveal his surprise at the discoveries that are being made. 2 summers ago, he tweeted about a new animation of the DNA replication system that had been done by an Australian group. And it's too hard to describe in an audio interview.
Guys, someone remember me to check out this animation. So he's saying there's an animation of some cool stuff that's going on in the cell that surprised Richard Dawkins with how sophisticated it is, apparently. But so he outlined 3 points there. That the universe has a beginning, so what caused the universe? That the universe is finely tuned for the possible origin of life, and then you actually get life. and it's packed with some interesting features. And he's just taking this as, here's the evidence, which does this fit better with? And so he's saying, I come to a different conclusion from AP's hero, Richard Dawkins.
But I've got animations of this type of stuff on my website. Exquisite information processing systems that are being discovered inside the cells. Not just that we've got digital code in DNA.
It's incredible.
It's that there's sophisticated, hierarchically organized information processing systems at work. And when Dawkins saw one of them animated, he said he was knocked sideways with wonder at the integrated complexity of this digital information processing system.
I'm glad. I hope it knocks some of his arrogance out of his.
Well, the point is,
I want to give you a chance, Michael.
I'm also a Bayesian,
Arrogance?
like Michael. Okay, and the idea that we have three things that allow us to test hypotheses. One is we've got an original hypothesis, whether it be a scientific hypothesis or metaphysical hypothesis. Those hypotheses about reality generate certain expectations about what we should see, the properties of the universe or life, and then we make observations to see if what we expect to see is what we actually see. And my contention in the book is that what we would expect on a intelligent design, or rather even a theistic design hypothesis.
You're making him nervous when you say theistic. Keep going.
Well,
this guy gets nervous like AP when he hears theistic.
Yeah.
So,
I get angry.
Yeah. So, and this is actually difficult to do. There's a problem with information that's already in, right? Like information that's already kind of settled. And what I mean is theists and non-theists, we're all familiar with the evidence that's around us. So we all kind of accept it, right? We all kind of accept it like as if this obviously has to fit well with whatever we believe, because this information that we have is all known information. So you have to kind of do a thought experiment, according to what Stephen Myers is saying. You have to say, okay, if you didn't know the features of if you didn't know the features of the world that we're in, and you just started with a hypothesis you have to abstract and pretend you didn't know what the universe is like, or that there is a universe. And you just start with the hypothesis, blind, pitiless indifference, or whatever it is, or nothing, or whatever you want to call it, versus theism. And you compared and said, okay, what would the features be like according to each one of these hypotheses? And then you bring in, even though you already know the information, pretend that you didn't know it, figure out what your expectations would be, describe what your expectations would be, describe why you would have those expectations if theism is true. And keep in mind, people have been reasoning like this for a long time. This is part of arguments against theism as well. If God is all-powerful and all-knowing and perfectly good, what would I expect? Well, probably not tons and tons and tons of human and animal suffering in the world. And so what your challenge as a theist would then be, okay, how do you reconcile those observations with your hypothesis, which didn't seem to lead to those expectations and so on? So you can apply the same sort of reasoning and just say, okay, if whatever causes Dawkins believe in is creating the universe, are you going to expect a universe? 2, are you going to expect it to be finely tuned for life? 3, are you going to expect to get these sophisticated systems in cells and so on? Are you expecting any of that? If you have God involved, God could create in a ton of different ways. So he could create all kinds of different features and all kinds of different organisms and so on. But the question is, which hypothesis would those particular observations that he's talking about, which hypothesis would work better with those details? And he's saying Dawkins comes to one conclusion, and I say theism. Understand, AP? I have to break things down for AP because he focuses on all the wrong things.
Absolutely.
Okay, you got all that? Now, is everyone on the same page here? Everyone's a theist.
Yeah.
Okay.
Monotheistic, whatever. That what we see in the universe relating to big questions about the origin of the universe, the origin of life, the origin of the physical structure of the universe. What we've discovered about those big events in biological and cosmological origins comport beautifully with theistic expectations, and they contradict the expectations of the scientific materialists. And
oh, that was a burn, but he's too nice to say, oh, you got served.
That's the reason that scientific materialism and scientific atheism is getting so weird. That's why we've got
multiverses and all that.
Multiverses, alien designer hypotheses, simulation hypotheses, the universe from nothing idea that's been conjoined with quantum cosmology and Lawrence Krauss. This is where I'm also a skeptic, but I'm a skeptic about the magical thinking that materialism now entails. And so
he's saying it's materialism that entails magical thinking in order to explain all this stuff. AP believes in magic without a magician.
I would personally find that ridiculous, but I would also not like to argue against this guy.
This guy seems smart, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Like he seems, I've said before, there are people and you get smarter and smarter and smarter. And then there's like a line where if you get any smarter, then you start getting weird. And the smarter you get, then weirder, because like all your brain power is going to one area and you don't function well in certain other areas. He seems like he's right on the line as far as like, if he were just slightly smart, it seems like he's just getting into like the could be weird area.
Yeah, I didn't want to say it, but yeah. Yes.
Seems pretty sharp, though.
I think Michael and I have a lot of commonality in epistemology.
Does that speak to you, Michael?
But difference in judgment about where the rub is.
Does that sway you a little bit, Michael? Does that get you to kind of like does that knock you off your? You're just a healthy skeptic here, but that argument seems so
on the frame.
Compelling.
First of all, the blind, pitiless indifference. Planets and stars and galaxies and space-time don't care about me. They don't even know I exist, and who would think otherwise? I think the pushback against that quote from Richard is that there must be a mind out there behind the stars and planets and galaxies and space-time and so on that would care about us, something like that. It's kind of
I don't think he used the word care, though. I don't know that you said.
Well, those were here, created us, or some such thing, right?
Well, I'm just talking about the evidence for intelligent activity that you find in something like digital code or nanotechnology, or the fine-tuning of the laws and constants of physics and the initial conditions of the universe.
Yeah, let's stick with that idea.
Which have moved many physicists from the materialist view to the theistic view.
The idea that there is some kind of a mind, a designer. What do you think of that,
there's
Michael?
These different hypotheses, the multiverse, different versions of string theory, and so on. These are not just willy-nilly throwing them out there because we don't want to believe in God. That isn't the case at all. I just was at a conference in Wales yesterday, just returned.
So the criticism, he seemed to interpret what Stephen Meyer was saying as claiming that physicists and so on are coming up with these theories to explain things in order to avoid theism. So in other words, I can't believe in theism, and so I have to explain these things, and I can't explain them, so I have to come up with stranger and stranger theories. And I think Shermer's going to point out that it's not just trying to avoid, you're not just trying to avoid God. There are other reasons that you come to these conclusions. And I think they're kind of both, I think they're both right in the sense that, the atheist doesn't have to sit there and say, I need to come up with a way to avoid God in this situation. It's just, I'm a materialist. Those are the kinds of explanations I'm going to look for. And it seems like what Stephen Meyer's pointing out is these alternatives are becoming increasingly absurd for a reason, namely because you're avoiding theism and you refuse to accept it.
That's the thing, that claim can go both ways. It can go, you can say that that you are trying to get to different conclusions because you want to reaffirm your belief in God, or you can also make the claim against the materialist perspective and materialist point of view. It might be just in both cases a complete mischaracterization of why people are motivated to get to those conclusions that they get to.
And so why are you motivated to hate everyone?
Because I love hate.
Love the way you hate.
In which Roger Penrose was there, Brian Greene. They were debating string theory, the Big Bang, the origin of the universe. How do you explain it? There is not agreement that there was a beginning called the Big Bang. Roger Penrose was there promoting his own cyclical theory of the universe, right? So there is no a beginning; it just cycles through. And
so you don't believe in the primary movement?
No, but my point is
that's
this:
that's not actually accurate.
Your boy Michael Shermer is getting burned up here, and this is what I mean. Like when it comes to like tools of skepticism, Shermer's really good. When it comes to like actual knowledge of science, your boy's about to get burned up here. So, just to recap, Shermer just pointed out that wait a minute, these things that you're taking for granted, like beginning of the universe at the Big Bang. No, even these things are still debated. And you got Penrose; he's arguing for kind of a cyclical model. And so they are still debating these things. This isn't settled. And it looks like your boy here, AP, Stephen Meyer's about to burn him up.
Is empirical evidence of a beginning. What Penrose does is postulate an infinite cycle of beginnings for which he has no evidence and has to posit something called a phantom field, which other physicists have rejected on the grounds that the phantom field has attributes that no other physical field ever postulated in physics has, namely mind-like characteristics. It can reduce entropy at just the right time, in just the right way, to allegedly produce another cycle of expansion. But there's no evidence for an infinite cycle of beginnings. That's a pure theoretical postulation.
Well, but there's a lot of that's derived from the mathematics, apparently, which I don't study.
You're messing with someone who does study it there, Michael Shermer. Be careful.
That is not just a hand-waving move on the part of scientists because they don't want to believe in God. A lot of scientists do believe in God. It's just they're not using that science as a justification of that. So,
yeah, Michael, I'm not saying that any of these alternative models are motivated necessarily by atheism or materialism, although some scientists have been very clear that that is their motivation. I'm just saying that when they're invoked as explanations, they fail. Cool. The multiverse has the problem that it's based on two speculative cosmological models, string theory and inflationary cosmology, both of which require prior unexplained fine-tuning to make them plausible. So even if you go with a multiverse, you're back to ultimate fine-tuning.
Well, we're back to this circle. We're back to...
Does any scientist out there actually think or say, I reject the notion that there is a creation or a creator, and I testify that I agree only with materialism, and I am here to prove that I'm right about this.
Where have you been, AP? That's what every dumb atheist, donkey-brained scientist on the planet says.
No, is any scientist actually making the claim that they're pursuing that specifically? Like, because I'm not. You would say you would go for Richard Dawkins as the one who is insisting that atheism is right, and that there is no such thing as a creation, there is no such thing as a God. But I personally have never heard from him directly such a stated goal that he wants to pursue the goal of proving that there is no God, or of proving that of using science specifically to show that everything can be explained in a materialistic way and not in a theistic way. I don't think that is anyone's actual focus.
No, and I don't think Stephen is saying that, because he said he's not saying that this is motivated, and he pointed out there are some people who have said they're motivated by these kinds of things, but it's more like it's more like people, because and matter of fact, Michael Shermer pointed out that lots of physicists who are theists still approach this in the same way. They're not bringing in God as an explanation for various things and so on. So they are trying to still figure out, comparing and contrasting various theories and how they actually work with explaining what's around us. So I think it's like with people like with the people that they're talking about here, it's more along the lines of if you're a materialist, you're just going to accept. You're going to be looking for material. You're not going to be looking for God as an explanation of anything. You're going to be looking for materialistic explanations, and so if that's what you're left with, those are the things that are on the table. You kind of have to veer towards it. And the point he just started making, the point Stephen Meyer just started making, and I think he fleshes it out more, is they fail. If that's what you're thinking is, hey, now I have this materialistic, this alternative materialistic explanation, He's pointing out that none of these actually get you away from the issue because they all point to a designing intelligence. So what he was just saying there is if you go in the route of the multiverse, well, that's based on theories, which they also have theistic implications. So even if you go with Penrose and what he needed for his cyclical model, he says it starts to sound like you need an intelligence because it can actually reduce entropy at very specific points and so on. So it sounds like he's saying, hey, if we just take the way things look as far as like the Big Bang and fine tuning of the universe and so on, that points to theism. Once you try to come up with other explanations, those additional things you're proposing seem to me to point to theism as well. And so it's like he's saying there is no escape. There is no escape in these alternative explanations of things.
I see that he says that people are generally not motivated by that, although some are. And that's the thing. That's what my mind does. When I hear that, I'm like, wait a minute, does anyone actually do that? Does anyone actually?
Yeah, there's a famous quote by Richard Lewontin, and he said that the things we're saying, it's not because science is compelling us to say them. It's because we have a prior allegiance to materialism. And he goes through this and he says, so we have to select only the positions that are materialistic in nature. And he says, because we cannot allow a divine foot in the door. So I think he's thinking of some of the guys like that, but I think you're right. And Michael Shermer is right. And Stephen seems to agree that like most people aren't, it's not like you're a scientist and you're coming up with your hypothesis about the origin of the universe. You're like, how can I avoid God here? How can I avoid God? If you're a materialist, you're just not thinking of that. You're thinking, how do I explain all this? And so, yeah.
I'm not any closer to the truth. I'm just in a world of theorem and theory, and let me simplify. Maybe this is a better way.
I cut him off though. I should let him finish his point.
My larger point was that we don't know for sure. What banged the Big Bang, what was there before the Big Bang, and so on.
What banged the Big Bang? That just reminded me of remember Dawkins, and he was saying, and so they've got a divine knob twiddler, twiddling all the knobs, a divine knob twiddler who banged the Big Bang.
I immediately looked at you because I knew you couldn't get over that.
No, and I also remember there's an old joke. Hey, what happened before the Big Bang? The big date.
Okay, yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
Sort of a childish joke for that atheists would like.
So there's a lot of speculation. There's no theory of everything to unite general relativity and quantum mechanics. That was one of the themes at this conference. There's half a dozen different ideas. People have their own pet theories and so on.
That's one of the interesting things is I forget why. Remember, Stephen Hawking said it in A Brief History of Time, which I read in jail. He said that there's a problem that like relativity works well. It accounts for lots of things. Quantum mechanics works well and works with a lot of things. By the way, with relativity, you're focusing on behavior of like large scale objects like stars and stuff like that, and how they bend space time. And then quantum mechanics focuses on really, really, really small things and so on. But there's a contradiction between the two systems in that they can't both be true. They both work in their areas, and yet they can't both be right. He didn't explain why. And then I read a book called Black Holes and Warped Space-Time, and he explained it, but now I can't. He explained what the contradiction was, but now I can't remember. Now I can't remember what it was. So I have to read that again at some point. So I was in the.
You read books?
In the 1990s, I did. Not anymore. Now I just watch YouTube videos.
Good.
Got it.
Because Andrew Tate said it's a waste of time and only losers read books. So.
That's true. And so, yeah, Shermer here is just pointing out that they're still working on that. How do we reconcile this? Because there's a contradiction involved, and he's saying there's a bunch of different theories, and they're working on them.
Difficult to test, if at all, or maybe they eventually will be tested. That was one of the themes of this conference was you guys promoting the standard theory are going too far. you don't have the kinds of confidence you should that you would need with the evidence that we have. Therefore, it's still open to debate. So the idea that there's one theory here, and then there's the God hypothesis. No, there's actually a dozen over here, and we don't know which is the right one.
Well, that's not quite an accurate characterization of the way
I love it how Sherman, this doesn't work because of this. Yeah, that's not quite an accurate representation of the state of things.
argue the case, because what I show is that there are multiple cosmological models, and even the ones that are attempting to undermine the claim or the evidence for a definite beginning to matter, space, time, and energy, such as the quantum cosmological models, or the cyclic model of Penrose, or the Steinhardt model, that if they get rid of the beginning, they end up having subtle theistic implications for other reasons. So are
those subtle theistic implications the idea that there has to be a first mover? Is that
typically what happens? Is that if you reject an absolute temporal beginning to the universe with one of these other models, you end up creating more acute fine-tuning problems. The quantum cosmological models have that problem. That in quantum cosmology, which was the famous, the approach of Hawking and Hartle.
I don't know what that is. Sorry, quantum cosmology.
We'll probably. This discussion goes on for quite a bit. Probably once he wraps this point up, we'll probably just go over to taking super chats and stuff like that. But this is kind of the takeaway as far as Stephen Meyer's point is concerned. The sort of big takeaway here is if you look at some of the big features of the world we're in and life, that there's a beginning to the universe, that the universe is finely tuned, and the actual features of life, he says that the conclusion that he's drawing is those features fit a lot better if you start with a theistic hypothesis than with a non-theistic hypothesis. And then how he expanded it here, which again is the takeaway, is he's saying, I look at all the alternatives. So what's the alternative to the beginning of the universe? What's the alternative explanation of fine-tuning? What's the alternative? He says, I look at all the alternatives, and they actually, to me, look like they would have theistic implications as well. In other words, once you go with a different model, all of a sudden now you need more fine tuning to get that to work, and so you're not dealing with the fine tuning problem. You're making it a bigger problem for you if you're focusing just on materialistic explanations. He's basically saying there's no escape route. Any of these other explanations that you want to go with, if you want to go with multiverse or cyclical model or anything else, it doesn't actually get you away from the theistic implications. So we'll let him finish this point up here. Let me back up slightly, and then we'll get AP's assessment on this and how he can possibly continue being a donkey-brained atheist after hearing this, and we'll take some questions.
My assessment after these guys?
One of these other models, you end up creating more acute fine-tuning problems. The quantum cosmological models have that problem. That in quantum cosmology, which was the famous, the approach of Hawking and Hartle.
I don't know what that is. Sorry, quantum cosmology.
There was a very popular book by Stephen Hawking, The Brief History of Time.
Yeah, I read it. Couldn't get.
It's
look at my face.
It's a very difficult book because it purports to be
Everybody's
a popularization.
talking about how great the book is, and I know they didn't understand it because I started.
Everyone, see this before your time, AP, but Stephen W. Hawking came out with A Brief History of Time in the 1990s, and it's supposed to be a popular explanation of cosmology, and no one could understand it. No one could understand it. So it was called, I think it had some label back then, the most unread book in the world, right? Because everyone was buying it, and then everyone would give up very, very, very quickly.
That makes sense.
Not D. Wood. D. Wood is in a jail cell. D. Wood read it and then read it again and still didn't understand a lot of it.
And I was like, I go down the wormhole here, and I was like, hey, man.
Which was interesting because, again, then I read Black Holes and Warped Space-Time, and it was much clearer to me. So I don't know if Hawking is just bad at explaining things or something.
I didn't study physics. I don't know what I'm doing here. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, in Hawking's book, he purports to get rid of the beginning in his popular book by invoking something called imaginary time, and he makes mathematical transformation in the description of space-time, of the universe. But he gets rid of the implication of a beginning to time only as an intermediate step in a mathematical procedure, and that intermediate step involves imaginary numbers, which have no physical meaning in that intermediate step. When he converts the transformation back to real time, the singularity reemerges. And in all his technical work with James Hartle up at Santa Barbara, they never get rid of the singularity. They have to presuppose the singularity to try to explain the origin of the universe using principles of quantum mechanics. And what's really interesting about and these are really the main alternatives to standard Big Bang cosmology with a definite beginning to the universe. And what's interesting in all of these models is that they end up explaining the universe by reference to pre-existing mathematics.
They end up explaining the universe in terms of pre-existing mathematics. That's interesting. I just wanted to point out the next Zakir Naik here. There's a debate. Where's the chess something and all the insults? And that just made me think, like, what if Ali Dawa and Muhammad Hijab were there right now? They would. Isn't it interesting that like Michael Shermer can sit here, like I know he's disagreeing with lots of things, but he will just sit here and listen. And then like people will listen to Michael Shermer. Isn't it totally different from like the Dawa scene?
It is. You know what my biggest problem with this
Hey,
whole
why are you
thing
totally
is?
out of focus? People are complaining. Why are you totally out of focus? What kind of crap camera do you have?
What?
Do you have autofocus? Wave at the camera, AP.
I have the best.
Oh, there you go.
camera.
There you go. There you go.
Interesting.
You're good.
You know what my problem with this whole thing is? It started out with a rather not so deep discussion led by this Colin guy, and I was like, what is even the point of this? Like, this is not even important. And then, and then these two guys take over, and from the underwhelming thing that I was just listening to and the very low expectations, we suddenly jump into this, and I'm suddenly completely lost. And I think, wow, I've never felt so dumb in my life.
Well, keep in mind some of the stuff that he's talking about. There are not a lot of people in the world who understand what he's talking about.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a situation where you'd have to take his word for it a little bit. But yeah, he's pointing out, Stephen W. Hawking and going with, imaginary mathematics and stuff like that to get things in order to avoid certain things. He's pointing out so he had two different points. The one I mentioned a couple minutes ago was that any of the alternatives that you want to go with, as opposed to the main current views like Big Bang cosmology and stuff, all the alternatives of that stuff that someone could think that he can use. Well, I don't have to explain, how the universe got here as far as in terms of Big Bangs, like, who banged this thing into existence? I've got this other theory. And he's pointing out, you got that other theory. Guess what? That massively skyrockets the amount of fine tuning that's needed and stuff. So he's saying none of these work. And then here he's pointing out that some of the stuff like that Stephen Hawking and so on what they would use to try and avoid some of the issues, you end up with this mathematics in the background, and it's pretty crazy what you need to get this off the ground. So let's go ahead and we'll let him wrap this point up, and then we'll jump into some.
I totally understand both of those, and I understand the point that he's making. The issue is the technicalities of everything that he just talked about.
Yeah, same here.
Really, really, really got me confused.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than a pre-existing material state. So you have this weird condition where you've got math, which is inherently conceptual, somehow producing matter. And Alexander Vilenkin, one of the great Russian physicists who's advanced quantum cosmology, has said, before there's matter, space, time, and energy, what tablet could these physical laws have been written on? Is it mathematics is the domain of the mind? Are we really saying, therefore, in this approach, are we implying that the universe came from a mind? And so what I do in the book is show that philosophers call this.
AP has been humiliated, and he's taken off running to avoid hearing these powerful, powerful refutations of atheism.
You remember how my camera fell down when we were in Israel? And it fell when we were like at the.
Oh yeah. When you dropped it like outside the car, right? And then
Yes,
you were picking pieces of it up. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think since then the ability to focus. I don't know why. I don't know how that works, but something broken.
How can someone donate to you to replace your crap camera that's broken now?
It's just a lens. I think the lens is just messed up. So I have a different lens.
It was. I remember there were like pieces of whatever whatever goes around it were hanging all over the place.
I could get a new lens. This lens was good because it has like low light focus and stuff.
Hey, a little behind the scenes. So you had that, and you drop your camera and break it, and you're ready to cry. And but at the same time, you've got that little recording device. It's that thing needs to be a bright. Well, you don't want to make it a bright color because people wear it, so it has to be dark. But man, that thing gets hard to find. So AP's got this recording device that he's recording all his interviews with, and then he loses it right after we've been traveling around the kibbutz and the site of the Nova Festival and stuff like that. So we had no idea where that thing was. Searches his bag, searches the car that we're in. Someone's driving us around. We're in the back seat and stuff. And
that thing is so important because everything is on there. I'm
all this audio is on there. Yeah,
I'm panicking. I'm like, if I don't find this, so much that I did over the last few days, I didn't transfer it. It's all still on there. What's the point? Everything is lost. Yeah. And then
oh yeah. So then I was like, there was one spot. So you scoured the car, and there was one spot where the little seatbelt thing is, and there's a little gap there, and I was like, something could have slid down in there. So I could get a finger in there, and then it was in there. So that was fortunate, because that would have sucked.
Yeah,
that would have sucked if you'd lost your audio for stuff that you recorded.
Yeah, and nobody would have ever looked there. So I still have no idea how you actually.
That would still actually be there.
Yes.
And there's a question of like how it ends up. Like, I don't know. That had to like fall out, then slide over there, then fall down in there. Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah,
glad we got it there.
Yeah.
Right, Stephen. Finish your point, Stephen. Don't go on another tangent.
Developing a robust case for something, that there's a kind of decision tree. If you go standard Big Bang based on general relativity, you got a definite beginning, and that has an implication that's theistic. You don't like that approach, you want to go quantum cosmological, that has a different theistic implication. If you want to go with Penrose and Steinhardt, these guys create, their models create more acute fine-tuning problems, which requires a prior mind. And so it's very difficult
whether it's math or a Big Bang, there had to have been,
the materialists have a problem on any point in the decision tree. That's
because we're back to the first mover,
it's not just,
aren't we?
Yeah, it's
isn't that what it is? Aren't we back to, wasn't it Newton who talked about?
There is the need for the first cause, but there's also a problem of specificity. We live in a universe with very specific configurations of matter.
I love that word.
This guy's making all sorts of deep philosophical and scientific and theological points. And he'd be like, I love the word specificity.
I always had a thing with words. I still do. That's why I always like playing with words. That's why when we spent our week together, I was constantly playing with different words and using them in different contexts, and you were laughing about it. But I just love the sound of words and the structures of words. And when I hear a word like that, specificity, it's like, wow, it's beautiful.
Well, it's good. It's good because normally you only love words that like sound perverted to you or something like that.
Yeah.
It sounds like butt.
That create all the wonders around us. You know, the beauties of biological systems, the beauties of our planet, the stability of the solar system. And the game of physics from the beginning is to try to describe or explain everything by very simple regularities. And you don't get complexity out of regularity. If you want specified complexity, if you want to configure matter in a specific way, you can't just say, well, there was one simple law, because what laws do is describe regular patterns that repeat over and over again. Sun up, sun down. All matter gravitates. I drop the thing, it falls. I drop the thing, it falls. I drop the thing, it falls. Laws like that do not provide adequate explanations for the specificity of the genetic code or the anatomy of a turtle or
we're talking about.
What the heck are you nodding at, Michael Shermer? Anyway,
We're talking about systems.
or the fine tuning of the universe. There is an attempt within the materialist framework to try to square a circle, to get something for nothing in terms of information, or what we call specified complexity, to get specificity out of simplicity.
Do you agree with that, Michael?
That's a fundamental problem that has not been solved by any of these models, and they all run up against it when you examine them.
Maybe he just won me over by saying that beautiful word, but what he's describing there sounds very compelling. So it actually has me thinking about it. And Michael Shermer's
it is. Yeah, and as a pointing out, there are like all sorts of details which we would not get because we don't understand a lot of the theory, the theories that are, that are cutting edge theories and stuff like that he would be dealing with. But the main gist there, the sort of point that it's interesting. If you go back to some mathematics before existence, okay, mathematics is abstract and conceptual. It exists in a mind. If you don't have the material universe to be how is it existing before these things? So he says, well, that would seem to point to a mind where the mathematical rules are in, Big Bang that has the implications and so on, life that has the implications. And what he was just pointing out there, kind of what the heck is wrong with you? You're thinking about some stupid word.
Continue.
Specificity. And what he was pointing out here is that you can describe complexity in certain ways in terms of laws and so on. So a crystal has very complex crystalline structure and so on. But that operates according to natural law. And he's pointing out information like in the fine tuning or in DNA, it's not just things that a crystal, if you put something at a certain temperature and pressure, it goes into that position naturally. And he's pointing out that what we find in life and in the universe, it doesn't fit. That requires specificity. Specificity. If the specificity continues as it is, atheism's looking pretty dumb. All right, AP.
Yeah.
So
Days
we
of
concluded.
Elijah, very nice comment in the chat. I was laughing.
What's that? What was it? What was the comment?
Days of Elijah said, "Who banged the universe?" And also,
Yeah, the dude already said that earlier. Who banged the bang? What did he say? The banger, the Big Bang, or whatever.
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'll take some super chats now. Messianic Apostate said, "Would you debate Osama Abdullah again?"
I would debate Osama bin Laden. Who's Osama Abdullah?
His site was, so we had Answering Islam back in the day, and then he had Answering Christianity.
And that guy. Oh,
yeah,
God.
he had the most popular Islamic apologetics site back in the day. He was not a good debater. He was not a good debater. All his stuff was like insanely stupid. Matter of fact, that was the guy. That was the guy who he looked. Muhammad said there are 360 joints, and then so he says, "Look," and then I found this confirmed, and it's a screenshot from a hospital, and it said joints. It says joints 360, right? So we're like, huh, that's interesting. Let's look it up. It was actually the phone number extension, right? So you dial the hospital, and if you want the joints department, then you dial 360. You add 360 on there. So it became a big joke. Wait a minute, this is the new proof of Islam, a phone number? And of course, but he would do that over and over again. He would use these really stupid things that he didn't understand. So no, I mean, Osama Abdullah I haven't heard anything from him in a long time. So
I just know his website, and the website is like it's so
garbage.
Stupid.
It's really bad.
So ridiculously stupid.
Nobleverse. In fact, I can say it now because he's not married to her anymore. But Osama Abdullah was. We were out in California, and he debated me and debated James White, and it was so fun. I think back then, it was Osama Abdullah was complaining that the Gospel of John is written by John, but then he says there's a man sent by God whose name was John. And he's like, oh, how can you say so? Like James White is trying to explain. It's two different Johns, genius. It's the Apostle John. He's talking about John the Baptist. He's not confirming himself as sent by God. And like Osama Abdullah couldn't understand that there are two different Johns. It's sort of like Muhammad not understanding there are two different Marys, right? Like they don't get it. If it has the same name, it must be the same. Why is like there's 7 trillion of you named Muhammad then if the same person has to have it?
It's such a common name.
Yeah, but so anyway, so he did his debate with me, and then he was debating James White, and his wife came out and talked to one of the organizers and said, I don't think you should be getting my husband to defend Islam in these debates. It's like, gosh, man, your own wife throws you under the bus. Wow.
That's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Pretty bad.
Can you remember that big argument Osama had with Ehtisham Ghulam in the comment section of the Answering Muslim site? No, I do not. But I do remember Osama Abdullah and I think Nadir Ahmed were threatening to beat each other up and stuff. But we were CC'd in the discussion. So these guys are talking about beating each other up and stuff. Oh boy. But like a bunch of Christian apologists are CC'd in this discussion. It was funny.
Why were they doing that?
No idea. That's just how these guys were. They were all trying to thump their chests and show that they're the most, they're the best, and
and Nadir Ahmed is still around after all of his embarrassing performances. Still like, and I am still here, and I am undefeated, and they are all scared of me.
They've all been running from me. Yeah, Nadir will make a comeback. So he'll disappear for like 5 or 6 years. Then he'll make a comeback, and then we'll ignore him for a while. And then finally we'll debate him, and then he'll get crushed, and then he'll disappear for a while. And anyway. Yeah. But it's a similar situation with Osama Abdullah and Nadir in that like who pays attention to them anymore. So what's your purpose in the debates when you've got guys that no one pays any attention to anymore? Mm-hmm. Can atheists scientifically prove human rights? I would say no. I would tie that into what these guys were saying, that you can scientifically test things in terms of if you assume certain things are true and then you see what kind of results they have. It's not like testing them in a lab, but you actually have data to go on as far as what works best. But as far as like proving the right, I don't think so. But what are your thoughts on that, Evie?
You're not supposed to be. It's not something that is supposed to be scientifically proven.
Yeah, it's a different realm of reality.
You could argue, reasonably argue that it is a social construct for a specific purpose, and that it is therefore naturally or reasonably not expected to be proven or objectively proven, let alone scientifically proven.
Go Broncos. Yeah, good luck with that. They suck. Peace be upon me says, D. Wood, tell that heathen sitting next to you, I was atheist my entire life, studied philosophy, found God, and saw Jesus in my dream recently. AP, God love you.
Who's sitting next to you?
What did he say? A heathen. So
okay, but who's sitting next to
you?
I'm not sitting next to you. I'm sitting over here. I'm not. We're not in the same place.
As far as what people observe on their screen, so you're contradicting their observations of us sitting next to each other.
I have my own reality and my own truth. So, yeah.
Christians gave us science and universities. Most modern tech was invented by Christians. These have been hijacked by atheists who now deny Christians. So what we can say is that atheism is parasitic. It's like a lamprey clinging to the side of a mighty shark, and the lamprey looks around and says, wow, I'm going through this. I'm going through the ocean so fast. Yeah, you're clinging to a shark, sucking the delicious blood out of Christianity.
Now, I don't know what your whole perspective on this is, David. I know you are a fanatic in terms of religion, so you will probably say, oh, it's all Christianity. But the thing is, so when people claim that it's like atheists doing science or and not Christians and all of that, the very well-known people, Isaac Newton and all the others who made these big major contributions, the first steps, were people who did believe in God, but back then everybody believed in God. So
that's correct.
It's like you can't based on
Yeah,
those.
yeah, you can't. Yeah, what you can't say. Why didn't atheists discover that when you didn't have
Yeah.
atheists back then? That's true.
Yeah. But yeah, that's getting it. Yes.
Yeah, and what I had this matter of fact, I discussed this in my debate with Michael Shermer, and I made a separate video out of it. I did point out that as far as the pioneers of science, they were saying they have certain ideas that are connected to their theism, like the universe is created by a mind, and so they compare the universe as like another book, or they compare it to like a structure made by an architect. But they have that in mind, and their concept of a lawgiver, that laws of the universe, scientific laws, that they're given to you by, and notice that the entire analogy is like it's within human laws, that you have the leader of a domain who makes laws and so on. They're viewing the entire universe like that. But it's interesting, we still talk like that in terms of laws of nature and so on. But so they run with laws of nature because they believe that there's like this cosmic architect and cosmic lawgiver who's giving the laws. So that's one. They believe that the kind of universe that we're dealing with is intelligible. Like it can be understood because it's rational at bottom. Two, they believe that we're the kinds of things that can understand it because they believe that we are created in the image of God. So something that's not created in the image of God might not be able to understand this stuff, but we are. And they believed that it was actually good. They viewed it as a kind of worship. Like if I go and do a bunch of scientific research and I discover the law, then I'm actually understanding something about the mind of God, and I'm connecting with God in that way. And they viewed it as a kind of worship. And so they actually rolled with this and discovered quite a bit of things. And then atheists come in and say, actually, no, there is no God. There is no rational lawgiver. And we're not made in the image of God. We're just lumps of cells. And we just,
Stupid.
like mice. And then what does it mean for something to be good? It's not worship. And we're back to atheism being parasitic, sucking the lifeblood out of Christianity.
Stupid. Yes.
You've been hijacked.
Hijack.
AP, Christ or Caesar? That's what Captain Kirk
Christ.
said in Star Trek. Bred in circuses, sun worshippers were sun worshippers. Yeah, I made a video about that a while back. I want to remake that because the clips I used were too long, and I mean the clips of Star Trek I used were too long, and when I tried to re-upload it, the YouTube Paramount shut it down, so I have to actually use shorter Star Trek clips too.
YouTube said, hold on. I'm not going to do that.
Not going to do that. 5 silver pesos. Bobby Boucher, all lies. Bobby Boucher's mom created science and religion. You don't even know Bobby Boucher, do you?
I don't even know. I heard this. I heard the expression, and I heard this before, but I don't know who.
Yeah, it's from the movie Waterboy, and it was Adam Sandler, and he was Bobby Boucher.
Okay.
And it was used as slang for a while when someone like tackled the crap out of someone and go, "Oh, they Bobby Boucher'd him."
That's what
Ice Cream Sword said, "No, individual freedom is not the historical norm. It's a complete aberration. Greco-Roman times were not egalitarian. Christianity changed all of that. See Dominion or just look outside the West." Yeah, so that's not the point they're making. They're not saying that's individual freedom was a historical norm. They're saying, as far as what they were saying is, partly the guy was saying, hey, what's required for us to actually believe that we have these inalienable rights and so on given to us by our creator. And then Michael Shermer was pointing out people are just going with what actually they like once they experience it. So they experience more freedom. This doesn't mean it's always been this way. It's just, hey, once you start experiencing certain things and, I like it better. I like it better if I have this freedom or if we treat each other as we have these rights. And he's saying he said people vote with their feet. You're going to consistently move to a society with the features that you like better. I like duck more than turkey or chicken.
Duck is cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I like duck. Do you not read super chats from before the stream went live? I don't have access to super chats from before the stream was live.
Shame.
I don't know what you get on StreamYard, but I use Ecamm and it only starts once I go live.
Shame.
Kurds are cool. They are anti-Islamist. How dare you insult them? Yeah, good point.
I insult people when I like them.
Yeah, me too.
See?
D. Wood, how could you allow that kind of language? Is that talking about like earlier when we were saying golly and stuff?
Oh no, this yes.
Apostate boo-hoo.
This comes from apostate boo-hoo.
The picture's awesome there. Zishan said, how did David get Lionel Messi to go live with him? Isn't that a soccer player?
It is.
Do you look like Lionel Messi?
It's called football. Not really, but I don't know. Just look it up. Google Lionel Messi. Yeah.
Which country is the little country, Kurdistan or Kekistan? We need to spend cash to protect a national border besides our own. Wait, what did I just say?
What did you just say?
You advocated Kurdistan, and then there's Kekistan.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Kekistan is different. Kurdistan is the real one.
Okay. Now that that's been cleared up, isn't it amazing how we solve like every political problem in the world on our
People
live
are
streams?
stupid. They should be giving it all to us. Like, what is the United Nations when we can just offer a proper solution?
AP, have you heard of Timur Aklin YouTube channels hidden in plain sight? Palestinian converted to Judaism, would love if you interviewed him.
I heard something like that before. I think I'm familiar with it, and I think I did get that that recommendation. For some reason, I was about to say resurrection. I guess because I'm so compelled and so amazed by this conversation that we were just listening to. It has no connection at all to anything that I was saying, but for some reason I was about to say it. Anyway, but yeah, I did get that recommendation before. I should look into that. Yeah.
Can Shake Your Booty do the thug shaker?
The what?
I don't know what that is, but hey, I just had a funny idea. There was a song in the 90s called Rump Shaker. Just shake your rump. But it would be funny if Shake Your Booty has a song called Rump Shaker because he's a shake.
Yeah.
But it's spelled like shake. Got it?
No,
Shake Your Booty with the hit song Shake Your Rump.
No, I still think that I need to one day start a regular Shaky Booty show, the Shaky Booty Show, and it has to have a theme song, and I need to make a proper music video for that.
Oh, hey,
with a bunch of people shaking their bodies.
I've mentioned before. You need to get girls in burqas for the video, but they need to be shaking their rumps in Shake Your Booties. What's funny is we could probably take the lyrics from the Rump Shaker song, completely replace them, make a parody of it, and then Sal could probably like crush it in making the song, and then you just got to make the music video.
Yeah, Sal is good. He could do that.
We could have a bunch of girls in burqas shaking it.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, Apologetics conference up in Ohio over the summer. If you can make it there, we've mentioned in the past wanting to re-record the video I made with Nabil that was Islamophobia, where I'm a Christian preacher who's blasting away at Muslims, and the whole audience is like, "Oh, that's so evil, that's so intolerant." And then I pull off my wig, and I'm actually, and then it became Nabil, and he goes, "I'm Muslim," and then he said the same exact things, but he was saying them about non-Muslims, not about Muslims. And the audience said, "Well, this is very interesting." And there would be double standards, but I thought it would be. We kind of recorded that quickly. Like I came up with the passages. I made a list of the passages that we would want to bring up. Then I'm speaking, I'm giving a presentation. Nabil's just sitting there jotting down the script. So it was something that was like pretty off the cuff. I had the idea. I jotted down the verses we wanted to cover, and Nabil made the script while I was speaking. And then we were done. Then we actually recorded the video. but it could have been much tighter if we'd spent some more time working into it. But anyway, the point is, it would be funny if I start off as my blonde-haired Christian, like Baptist preacher blasting away at Islam, and then I pull off my wig and I go, I am, and I pull it off and you shake your booty. And it's like, shake your booty is the guy. Wouldn't that be funny?
That is a good idea. That could that can be done.
That would be funny. And the idea is we recorded it on we recorded that back in the day. We had a pretty crap cam. I mean, it was a good camcorder for the time, but now we have like 4K cameras and stuff like that. We get a way better video now than we could back then. So let's re-record that and it'll be super dope.
Inshallah.
What are your thoughts on Julian Assange? I have none. There is a new documentary called Trust Fall with 9.1 rating in cinemas currently on UK and Australia. I've never followed the situation with Julian Assange. Have you?
I don't think I will. I saw a few things here and there where I had some strong opinions, but I haven't followed him or the stuff that he does long enough to actually say anything on it.
Hey, someone put Sheikh Djibouti, the place Djibouti. That would be funny if you made a video called Shake Your Booty in Djibouti. Shake Your Booty goes to Djibouti. That could be another song, and do the whole music video in Djibouti.
And for that, we will now arrange a trip to Africa.
We've got to do it. Gonna take a lot to drag me away from you.
Terrible song.
Remember we had that big argument about whether that song is good or not?
Yeah. We did.
I bless the rains down in Africa. Here's some jizya that I found on the tunnel floor outside the goat pen. Talmudic Tunnels Construction, Inc. Here's some jizya that I found on the tunnel floor outside the goat pen. I should probably wash my hands. New tunnel to Kurdistan opening soon. Those guys are good at building some tunnels, man.
Yes,
see, because when you hear tunnels, you think they just dig under the ground. They got some things propped up. When they actually go in there and they have like hundreds of yards of like network tunnels and stuff out there, and they're all like, and like these underground buildings and stuff like that. It's pretty, it's like, gosh, put your energies into something productive, guys. You actually have skills. You have skills that could be useful in helping people and not just for destroying Jews.
But destroying Jews is much more fun for them, so.
Are Palestinian scientists allowed to work in Lebanon? Traveling Israel says no. Traveling Israel guy says no. So you're talking about Lebanon has taken in Palestinian refugees at various points. You're saying like they can't even work there if they're scientists? We'd have to check with Traveling Israel.
Scientists. I don't know. It depends on their. So Lebanon has a whole thing in place, a whole ban for anyone who holds an Israeli passport or who has been to Israel. But I'm not sure if that also applies to Palestinians.
Yeah, I'd have to see what the basis is for that. D Wood, do you hate Mike Winger more than Hakikachu? Well, I mean, I don't hate anyone. I love people, even my enemies, like Mike Winger and Daniel Hakikachu. But with Hakikachu, so he's doing all sorts of messed up things like defending child marriage and stuff, but you can see why. It's because of his ideology. It's like, what excuse does Mike Winger have for being so horrible and treating people so horribly all the time?
Yeah.
I guess is in response to me pointing out earlier, AP's not listening to the brilliant words of Stephen Meyer. Said AP would listen if this was a Hitler speech. AP would be like this. Oh, the melodious sound of his voice. The melodious sound of his voice.
You know what's so stupid? Right now there is this whole thing, this whole trend going around because some people have been translating Hitler speeches into English and making, like digitally altered versions of Hitler videos where they make him speak English and say all those things in English. And some people are on social media, they're like, "Oh, look at that! Why did we always hear these brief Hitler speeches and heard his angry voice, and they never told us what he's actually saying? When we listen to what he's saying, it actually makes sense." Just a bunch of Nazis on Twitter saying these ridiculous things, and some of them arguing things like, "Oh, and he never said any of those terrible things that they claim he said, like exterminating populations and all of that." And it's just so stupid, because I remember very well that there is indeed such a speech. So I looked it up yesterday, and you can find it on the website of the Holocaust, Museum, of the Holocaust Memorial something. And it is a speech where Hitler says, if Europe plunges into a war instigated by the Jews between the European people and the Jews, the outcome of it will only be the annihilation of the Jews. And he's making a prophecy. That's what he says there. So this is an actual speech that you can find. And then you have, in the face of that, people who are still Holocaust deniers and who are like, "Oh, he's just being demonized for no reason." Anyway, totally unrelated, but yes.
Yeah, guys, don't get AP started on all that stuff. Sheep Among Wolves would be cool for you guys to watch together. It's on YouTube, and it's the underground church in the Middle East.
That sounds based.
Let me screenshot that title. Some of these places, you can't just sit there and watch someone's documentary or something like that. You'll get flagged. Sometimes they'll even shut down the live stream or something like that. But it might be a situation where, it's meant to inform people, we might be able to just get permission. Hey, can we get some guys together and watch your documentary?
And they were like, "No, can't."
Hey, AP. It's from Brianna.
Yes.
Hi, AP. Are you content with the idea of no God and the meaninglessness that it entails?
That's not what it says.
Oh, I was paraphrasing.
Yeah, I am. Pretty much, yes.
That's your answer, Brianna.
But no, I see where Brianna comes from, and it does feel like, or it looks like it might be a very uncomfortable or very concerning, very stressful, very scary idea. And for me, it actually was at some point. It's not anymore. It's, for a long time now, it has been I've been quite fine with it. That said, she recommended a book to me, and I have been listening to that book. And I still am. I still haven't finished it because I took a break from it because I was focusing on different things. But it's a very interesting book. Just want to let Brianna know.
You don't know what you're talking about. What?
Yeah.
Here we have Apostate Mummy. Hi, guys. Knowledge. What are you laughing at?
Apostate Mommy, that's me.
Hi, guys. Knowledge payment here. 1, are eating Korban meats. Acts 15:20. 2, Ottoman ended up in IKEA. And 3, do you know who Hutham ibn Abdallat? God bless you both.
Ottoman ended up in IKEA. That's the thing I heard from. Who was that? Who recently made such a joke? We heard it together. I think it was Bill Maher, wasn't it?
Was it?
I think wasn't he giving a monologue about the whole Israel-Palestine thing, and then he said something about Ottomans, and now an Ottoman is something that you put your feet on, or something like that. I don't know. I think he recently said something like that.
Let's see. And as far as Hutham ibn Abdallat, isn't that one of the proposed names for original names for Muhammad or something like that? Joshua says, David Safety Wood. Yeah, because Safety is my middle name. Hey, nice tat.
Who? What? What?
David
tat?
Safety Wood, an apostate pillar stash.
Oh.
Apostate pillar stash. When I see apostate Aladdin, Aladdin, he ruined WWE for me as AA equals Arn Anderson. Best stream ever on YouTube.
Nice.
Lots of people liked our stream on apostate Aladdin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
People
it was
said
kind
it
of
was really funny.
Yeah, it was funny, but
I didn't even know we were being that funny, but a lot of people said, "Oh, that was so funny."
it was very funny. It was very funny. I personally felt that it was very funny when we were done, but I also kind of felt bad about it afterwards.
Yeah, because you've been exposed as a mean person who hates all Muslims.
Because it was like I don't know, 5 minutes into it, it was already enough, but we kept beating that dead horse.
Yeah, why'd you have to do that? You could have just said you disagree. Instead, you had to brutally keep making fun of the guy for hours.
Yeah, that's how
Shameful,
it goes.
shameful.
That's what they do.
AP, if God exists, would you like to know him? Do you harbor any bad feelings or bitterness to him?
No. No to yes to first question, no to second question. Yeah.
So hypothetically, if God did exist, it's similar to the question, if you're wrong, which I would agree with. If you're wrong, would you want to know it? And yeah, I would like to know
If I was wrong, I would like to know it. And no, I have no bad feelings at all.
Except he hates the God he doesn't believe in.
Yeah.
Joshua says,
I only have terrible feelings, not bad feelings. Yeah, no bad feelings.
Joshua says, AP, if the trajectory continues, American football is the greatest organized pro sport in history. Still an AP fan. This was a donkey-brained take by AP. This is the comment of the year, folks. Comment of the year from Joshua Wooden here. What are you laughing at? I'm dead serious.
What a ridiculous thing to say.
Yep. AP,
Anyway.
if he can't answer a perfect comment, he just laughs like a Dawa guy pretending. He said, as a primate, Norman Finkelstein.
He said, what?
Norman Finkelstein has some bananas in your cages. This was good. Please drop a Norman Finkelstein impression, D. Wood and AP.
I haven't listened to him in 24 hours. It's
all I can think of is Snagglepuss again, because I don't remember what the guy actually sounds like. But
I just kept repeating to myself because he kept saying during the debate, whenever he got angry at Destiny, he was like, Mr. Borelli, Mr.
Bernatelli, you're acting like a moron here. Why are you so stupid? You're not even worthy to sit at the table with me. You remind me of those Mexicans who will like making noise on Cinco de Mayo. What's wrong with that dude, man?
Mr. Borelli, we have probably read 10,000 books, and you only read the Wikipedia page, Mr. Borelli. Don't talk. It's so embarrassing.
Just shut your pie hole. Heavens to Murgatroyd. Why don't you exit? Stage left.
God, the guys.
You love to hate AP. It's time to learn to love, and accept Jesus into your life. Wait, you love to hate AP. I thought it was saying we love to hate AP. It was saying you, AP, you love to hate on everybody. It's time you learn to love, and accept Jesus in your life. Amen. Alhamdulillah.
I love to hate.
Love the way you hate. Mr. Cranges says, sup guys, ever read The Unseen Realm? No. You read that?
Mr. Ferrelli. Unseen Realm. No.
What?
Just when I think about Norman Finkelstein again, his whole attitude. It's like a little child in the body of a grandpa sitting there And I mean, so the guy is so immature. It's unbelievable. Like how he's how he goes on a whole ego trip and rant because he's accused of getting something wrong. He's like, Mr. Borelli, please, I have read everything. I am more literate than you are, Mr. Borelli. Please stop. Like, what is wrong with this guy?
And that's just, I mean, that's just terrible. That's just terrible reasoning. If a guy makes a point and you think he's terribly informed and doesn't know the actual evidence that you're familiar with, just say what the heck say what it is that refutes him. That's what you do. You don't just, I've read 10,000 books, so I'm right and you're wrong.
You are stupid. You're a moron. I know everything.
Yeah, because I mean, if you're going to pull rank like that, what do you do when a Zionist comes along and says, actually, I've read 25,000 books, and you go, oh, then I've been refuted. I've been refuted because he's read more books.
What's funny is Destiny actually threw in some things there, like as Norman Finkelstein was bragging about how literate he is and how great he is, and Destiny is like, yeah, you also claim to be an Israeli scholar who can't even speak Hebrew. But anyway, that's he was saying stuff like that.
That is funny. Hello, AP. Dr. James Torr is notorious for tangling. He was friends with Nabil as well. Dr. James Torr is notorious for tangling with and debunking origin of life chemists who claim to create single cells from scratch without a creator. Abiogenesis. Look up Dr. Torr. Yeah, he was your hero. What's that guy's name? Professor Dave, that atheist dude who flips out on everybody.
Yeah,
James Torr is like, as far as I've seen, the main guy he flips out on.
Really?
Yeah, he flips
There's
out
something
on.
really wrong with that guy, man. Dave. I didn't even know about him before. I saw his name on YouTube here and there occasionally, and I thought he just does, like, I don't know, sciencey stuff, and then he suddenly crosses me on Twitter, and all he does is just call me names under every tweet that I make. Man, what an insane person.
Yeah, why is that?
I don't know.
In other words, he's not just going after. He doesn't just flip out on people like theists who argue for the existence of God or based on science or something like that. Just anyone who disagrees with him, he flips out on.
Yeah, it was the whole thing. Like after October 7, he started going crazy, going on Twitter and arguing that everything Hamas does is basically justified. How dare I even suggest otherwise? I must be a bloodthirsty maniac or something like that. Like, shut up, man. Eventually, I blocked him because there was no point to it at all. He was like, whatever I say.
AP ran from him because of his powerful arguments.
And I even said to him, hey, if you are so passionate about this, if you appear under every tweet that I make, how about debate me? Okay? Let's have a debate. And he was like, no, I'm not going to give you my clout to have a debate.
I'll sit here all day, every day, whining about you on Twitter, but no, I will not debate you. You're beneath me.
Yeah.
Gotta love this
so
guy.
So I said to him, okay, I asked you, you said no, and you're just insulting at this point. There's no use to this at all. Goodbye. Blocked. That's what I did.
That's what they do. I support the smallest minority. It's called the individual. Anyone that seeks to undermine them is in league with Mephistopheles, I tell you. That's Mephisto, man. That's
Mephistopheles is based.
That's Faust, isn't it?
Yeah, from Faust.
Echoing.
That's the guy that you sell your soul to.
If an eternal, ever-existing source is required to begin existence, isn't intelligence and a will to act required before such a source would begin at all?
If an eternal,
are you talking about the source beginning? Are you talking about the source beginning, or before this source is beginning the universe?
To act required before such a source would begin at all. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah. So this comes up. this comes up with William Lane Craig and so on when he's talking about the characteristics of whatever brings the universe into existence. So if it's some eternal something, that gives rise to our universe, then whatever this something is doesn't require intelligence and a will, because it's deciding to create the universe and then creating it with certain features. Yeah, that would be an argument.
Look at it. Supposedly, a philosophy PhD sits here and just says something, and then that's supposed to be educational.
And King of the Whiners here. Oh, I don't like that. Oh, why can't we just talk about the word specificity and how elegant it is? What a beautiful
It is
word.
beautiful. It is beautiful.
Specificity, all the
Just
hissing
hearing
sounds.
the word, it gives me pleasure.
I think scientific debates about God are pointless. Oh, it's another person who says, here's what I like, and therefore everyone should be the same. I prefer apophatic theology like Cloud of Unknowing and St. John of the Cross. Well, since you just insulted everyone else, why should anyone care what you prefer?
I agree with
Everyday?
Everyday's based.
Gerald Schroeder's books, Genesis and the Big Bang in the Science of God, are very good.
Specificity.
How do we know they're good?
We just know. Who are you to question?
Solitary Emmy says, I just remembered 5 proofs for the existence of God by I have that book. A lot of similar material. I was supposed to pay AP to buy this book. Well, it's easy for AP. It's easy for AP to buy a book. Reading a book is a completely different problem.
What's it called? 5 proofs for the existence of God. For the existence of God. Who's the author? Who's the author? By Edward Fesser. I see.
Does science point to Islamic Platonism? No.
Yes.
The first law of biogenesis is life can't come from the non-living. So what is the alpha life? What's the alpha life mean?
Big life. The first life.
Yeah, it is interesting if you believe that once you actually have life, then life can continue spreading and changing and so on and adapting, and therefore you can get the complexity of life that we see around us. It's interesting what you need for that whole process to even get started. Because keep in mind, suppose you have, just by luck or chance, you get something that becomes a living cell, in the sense of something that has a metabolism and so on, and is consuming and so on. I mean, if it just happened and something formed that is life, that wouldn't get the process started. It has to just from the beginning have this ability to replicate itself too. So it's crazy. It's like if you had like a computer and you managed to put together a computer, that's one thing. If you put together a computer that can self-arrange new computers, that's like insanely sophisticated. So you don't just need something that like has a metabolism or can consume or anything like that. You need something at the beginning that replicates copies of itself, and it has that ability. And not only does it have the ability to make copies of itself, they can't be exact copies, because if you had exact copies, if it replicated itself perfectly, you wouldn't have any sort of diversity of traits for natural selection to act upon. So it has to make copies that aren't exact copies of itself, that has variation, but it can't be too far different, because if it was too far different, then it wouldn't preserve the beneficial characteristics. So at the very beginning of the entire process, you need something very, very specific, and I would say pretty mind-blowingly amazing. Specificity, such a beautiful word. Here's me with the Aisha at the Aisha bar. This discussion would be more entertaining. What?
Is this a good book? 5 Proofs of the Existence of God. I don't trust. Who was that? Solitary Amy. I don't trust Solitary Amy. But you said you have that book. Is it good?
Yeah.
Okay. I would never get it if Solitary Amy said get it,
But I'll
now
get
you
it,
say.
and then I'll
Yeah.
watch some YouTube videos.
Yeah.
This discussion would be more entertaining if Willie Nelson were at the table. He would be laughing and having a good time. I think that's a reference to the weed discussion earlier. I saw an interview with Snoop Dogg, and he was saying that he loved smoking weed with various people, and he said Willie Nelson's the only guy who just like completely could run circles around him. He said, I was sitting there smoking with him, and I'm like, yo, man, I need a break, dog. I need a break. So Willie Nelson, he said he'd never met anyone who could outsmoke him until he's Willie Nelson. Interesting. AP, you must be more compassionate. What if someone with a speech impediment comes to the stream and sees you liking the word specificity? Oh, you got to say that right. AP, you must be more compassionate. What if someone with a speech impediment comes to the stream and sees you liking the word specificity and they can't pronounce it? That might hurt their feelings and end their... What are you laughing?
The character is awesome.
AP's reaction is exactly what I'd expect from someone who giggles at the word sect. That is true. And it's not sect.
What reaction?
It's not sect. I think talking about you loving the word specificity.
But those are different things. Those are different things. Specificity is simply a beautiful sounding word.
Yes,
it doesn't.
And it's not sect. It's the plural of sect that he finds hilarious, and so he's just giggling like a little kid.
Yes, because it sounds kind of dirty, but specificity just sounds like just the auditory, the aesthetics, the beauty of this word, and how it is formed, and how it rolls over your tongue, and how it comes out of you once you speak it in different ways. It is. I'm laughing. Is such pleasure.
I'm laughing because I saw the next comment.
What is it?
It's goes back to our discussion of the Big Bang from Goat Hub. Here at the best site on the web, we can show you what can make a Big Bang.
I'm telling you, this whoever runs this account is good.
Very good. Very good at advertising. Mabuhay, whatever religion we're in, as long as we choose the right deed, God bless D Wood, and may the moon light the path for AP. And you know what the right deed is? Because you can choose a religion like Islam that would tell you the completely wrong thing to do. Like it would say, hey, the right deed is banging little kids. Beatrice here says, AP, do you believe anything is infinite? What would limit that infinite into not having consciousness?
We would have to have a very lengthy discussion on this. And you would have to first
it would have to be an infinite conversation.
Yeah, this conversation would take forever. It would be infinite as long as we were alive, if we were alive infinitely.
AP has been stumped. The next Zakernike. The next Zakernike says, Mike Winger, who, by the way, is cooler, just kidding, just warned all his wingalings about Andrew Tate. Yeah, we know. We might want to check that out, because that would be the most hilarious thing ever. Biggest nerd ever talking about the top G.
That sounds very interesting, because Mike Winger seems to be like one person that I think is very, very interesting to listen to. And why are you laughing?
Hi, guys. We're going to talk about Andrew Tate. And I just can't stand the fact that people are listening to him and not to me. So here's my video about that. I'm going to correct him.
I was trying to praise a nice Christian.
I am too. He's like the world champion of being a nerd. AP can't believe truth because Islam was sufficient for him. That's the
Oh.
dumbest. That's the dumbest joke ever. Sufficient for him.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I like it. I approve of it.
Are you familiar with Dr. Hugh Ross? Have you considered interviewing him? Yeah, Hugh Ross is a book creator in the Cosmos. That was one of the first apologetics books I read.
That's
Before
the
I
guy
even
who looks
knew
like me.
before I even knew what apologetics was, I read that in a jail cell. Given to me by Randy, the mighty Randy. David, Raskolnikov repented and accepted God in prison at the end too. Funny that you tried to imitate the book's beginning, but ended up acting out the end too. Fun fact, Dostoevsky, epilepsy, in which he saw visions of God. Yeah, that is, so I was talking with Harris about reading Raskolnikov when I was not mentally, reading Crime and Punishment when I was not mentally well, and thinking that Raskolnikov had the right idea, but he just wasn't the right guy. And so yeah, she's pointing out that, hey, you ended up in the same spot, going to prison just like him and repenting. That is funny.
You know what's bad? I feel like for years now, I want to go back and read that book again, but although I think it is definitely up there among the best books ever written, best stories ever written. I can't imagine reading it now at this point in my life again, because it is very, very taxing and very
Shameful.
effortful and very long to get through it. But I so badly want to do it again.
Yeah, it's pretty dope stuff. Don't know why. Always liked the Russians. Not like Putin and stuff. I'm talking about the Russian writers.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like their stuff, even though it's in translation. I don't know, something about their writing. They seem to understand people psychologically better than the vast majority of Western writers, like Tolstoy. I mean, he could be talking about a teenage girl getting her first menstrual cycle and how this is messing with her mind, and it would seem like completely authentic. Like he's talking about these girls and and freaking out because they're getting married and all this stuff, and it's just, he seems to understand the human mind well. Hey, here you go.
Very depressing literature, the Russian literature.
Yeah, it is. I usually do not impale furniture, but I do make an exemption when it comes to ottomans.
Nice.
Vlad there. AP means a lot that you remembered that book.
Oh yeah, I do.
AP's good. D Wood, do you think the earth is 6,000 years old? No. Shake your booty. Shake your booty crushed in debate by Mufti Anis Fakir. Oh. About to block this dude for just getting me to read that. Fortunately, I did not. Fortunately, Zishan Ali, I've got you numbered. I will be more careful in the future reading your stuff.
The O.
Let's just move on very quickly here. A couple more super chats and we're out. Bertold Brecht says, we love reason more than you love life. That'd be good. That'd be a good response to the Dawa guys. We love reason more than you love death. What's wrong with you, man? You're supposed to move on. Stop acting like a 4-year-old. Can't do. Gosh, I should just get my 5-year-old to do shows with me.
It's not even the joke itself, but rather the moment of realization and that just killed me.
Well, it's funny because at first I'm thinking, oh, did someone make a response to a joking response to one of AP's Shake Your Booty videos?
Oh boy. Yeah.
I'm here again, so I see that AP removed his cross, so I guess he's gay now, huh? I warned you, man, but no, honestly, love you guys so much. What are you talking about? He still got his cross?
What do you think? Here,
Cha-ching! Powerful. Powerful. What? Powerful. Powerful.
You see. Yeah.
Let's see. Blue Moon says, why does it matter if some people are atheists as long as they do not harm anyone? Many say we need God, religion for structure, especially young people. Isn't it a bit dangerous? People may choose the wrong God. Well, there are multiple issues involved here, Blue Moon. So one is, well, beliefs can be relevant to how people live. So there's that. And two, there's a matter of some people just want to know what's true, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, so
It's true.
want to say, hey, if God exists, then I would want to know that God exists. Or if God didn't exist, then I would want to know that. If Islam were true, I'd want to know that. So there is just this idea of something is true, we'd want to know it. Hello,
That's true.
outsiders. Aisha, what language is it? What is this? What language? Is this French?
Yes. Aisha joue avec sa poupée. What?
I'm guessing it's something I don't want to read. I don't know. And finally, what if someone who doesn't like science watches... Oh, here we go. It's another warning. It's cool. We've had like 15 warnings during this show. What if someone who doesn't like science watches this stream? Dark side of Christian YouTube. Exposed. Career ended. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. AP.
Yes.
We're planning on going live again tomorrow on your channel, right?
Yes.
Give everyone an idea of what to expect over there.
Yes.
What are we talking about tomorrow on your channel, AP?
Yes. Oh, Aisha joue avec sa poupée means Aisha played with her doll.
That is true. That is true.
Aisha jouait avec sa poupée means Aisha played with her doll.
So
It's
what
funny.
are we talking about?
Tomorrow we are... Mr. Borelli, tomorrow we are going to talk... No, tomorrow I want to look at Piers Morgan's conversation with Mehdi Hassan. Considering that Mehdi Hassan is a terrible guy, and something like that, we might want to have a look at that. That's what I'm planning for now. There's also something else about Mehdi Hassan that might be more interesting that I want to look into. But yeah.
So tomorrow will be Mehdi Hassan Day.
Yes.
On AP's
tomorrow
channel.
we'll talk to Mehdi.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, don't miss it. And we will catch you all then.
We will catch you tomorrow, Mr. Borelli.
Also, for everyone who was interested in the discussion and the video we're watching, there's a link to the full discussion in the description box. It's about an hour and whatever it was, 45 minutes or so. And there's a link to the channels of Michael Shermer and Stephen Meyer there if you want to check out more from them. In the meantime, we'll catch you all tomorrow.
And also you can watch some of the Michael Myers movies on
that will help
Amazon
you.
and other places.
Yeah, watching Michael Myers go around just brutally murdering people will give you all a good understanding of the moral implications of atheism.
Yes.
I'll leave you all with that.